is Ocean Robbins, and I am so excited that in just a moment now we are going to begin day 2 of the Food Revolution Summit. We'll be starting with Dr. Dale Bredesen in about 6 minutes. You are one of more than 303,000 people now who are registered for and participating in this summit, and who are joining you in taking a stand for healthy, ethical, and sustainable food for everyone who eats. If you are interested in your health and you want to make this world a better place, if you want to learn how to make food choices that optimize your wellness, you're in the right place. And I just want to say how thrilled I am that you are taking your precious time and your precious attention to be here with us right now, learning, growing, and participating. This is an incredible movement, and to be honest with you, the response to this summit is incredibly moving to me. I am thrilled, I'm elated, I'm humbled, I'm awed, and I'm so grateful. I'm so sick of the status quo as I see so many people suffering and hurting when they don't need to be. And I know how much better we can do, and I'm so grateful you are a part of the food revolution. Yesterday we heard some profound presentations from Dr. Michael Greger, Chris Carr, and Dr. Joel Furman, and we received thousands of enthusiastic emails and comments. Barty Mystery said, there is so much information that I ended up listening to yesterday's broadcast 3 times. And each time I picked up new things which I will try and put into my life and my family's life. John, your questions were very powerful, and they were key to the interviews. And I'm very grateful to all of you for sharing your experience and wisdom. Long may you continue to share this wisdom, and I hope I can also share my learning with my family and friends. God bless you all, Barty. Well, Barty, thank you so much for your participation, for drinking so deeply from this fountain, and for sharing it with the people you love. If you just joined us, we're going to be starting today's broadcast in about 4 minutes, day 2 of the Food Revolution Summit. Our focus is going to be on brain health and how you can optimize the healthy function of your brain now and for the long term. We heard from Lori Hawker, who said, I discovered the summit last year, and I'm so grateful for John and Ocean for bringing all these amazing people together to help teach us about this food revolution. I bought the empowerment package last year and shared with friends and students suffering from cancer and other diseases. Looking forward to all the knowledge I will learn from this summit. Thanks, and God bless you for all the people you are helping. Well, thank you, Lori, so much for sharing this mission and this message with the people you love and the people in your life. Everybody with us right now, we will be beginning today's Food Revolution Summit broadcast in about 3 minutes. As you listen to today's presentations, I want to invite you to think about what this information means to you, and also about who you might want to share it with. Because if every single one of us reaches just 10 people, then the 300,000 people in this summit will actually reach more than 3 million. And what if they reach more people? What if this revolution, this knowledge spreads? Just think what kind of impact we can have. We can literally change the status quo. If you just joined in, this is Ocean Robbins, and I'm sharing a few welcoming words. We're going to be starting day 2 in the Food Revolution Summit in about 3 minutes. We heard from Karen Walker responding to yesterday's broadcast saying, what a morning. I woke up very excited to participate in the Food Revolution Summit, my 3rd. I've been vegetarian for 24 years, but still didn't always make the best food choices. Through the knowledge I've received from these experts, I have since increased my plant intake 100-fold and eliminated other animal products from my diet. My husband, a triathlete, has also come on board in the past year, which has made things even better. I've recently become quite the plant-based chef. You wouldn't believe what else happened today. I received a message that my father-in-law had suffered a heart attack early this morning and had 2 stents performed. My husband was out doing his training, but he went straight to the hospital. I called him to see how his dad was doing, and he said he was doing fine and that they were all listening to the Food Revolution Summit. I couldn't help but laugh since his dad had questioned our new food choices. Talk about good timing. Thank you so much for what you do. I hope to use it not only to improve my own health span, but that of the other people I love. Well, thank you so much, Karen. My goodness, there are people listening from hospital beds, listening in homes and living rooms, listening in kitchens, listening in the car, listening while they're doing the laundry, listening in deserts and tropics and oases and all over the planet from 180 countries. We're all participating and learning and growing together. Thank you so much for joining in this movement. We heard from Connie Nesseth, who said, fantastic, I'm all in. I have lost 63 pounds since 2017. No hunger, no cravings. Food has never tasted so good and has been so satisfying. I have not felt so good since I was 40 when I started the yo-yo diets. In my 60s, this is the best thing I can do as I age. Thank you for this summit. Well, thank you so much, Connie, for joining in this mission and this work, and I am so grateful that you are reaping these benefits. We heard from Patricia Campana, who said, I took antidepressants and mood stabilizers for so many years, fearful of what I would be like without taking them. Once starting this new way of eating, I am recovering my physical and mental health, and I have been able to go off my medications. Well, Patricia, I think you are going to love today's presentations, because today our topic is brain health. Keep your mind healthy at every stage of life. There is a profound connection between what you eat and how you feel, between what's happening in your gut and what's happening in your brain, and between the choices you make now and the destiny before you. In a few moments now, you're going to hear us on the line with Dr. Dale Bredesen. At the top of the next hour, we'll be on with Drs. Dean and Ayesha Sherzai, and an hour after that with Dr. William Lee. Each of these food luminaries will be interviewed by my dad and colleague, best-selling author John Robbins. And it looks like we are ready to go now with Dr. Dale Bredesen. Welcome to the Food Revolution Summit, where we explore how you can heal your body and your world with food. This is Ocean Robbins, and I am joined by my dad and colleague, John Robbins, in welcoming our guest, Dr. Dale Bredesen. Dr. Dale Bredesen is one of the world's foremost authorities on brain health and how you can leverage diet and lifestyle to prevent and even to reverse dementia. He's author of the wildly popular New York Times best-selling book, The End of Alzheimer's, the first program to prevent and reverse cognitive decline, which is now coming out in 24 languages. Dr. Bredesen has served as chief resident in neurology at the University of California, San Francisco, and is founding president and CEO of the Buck Institute for Research on Aging. So now, Dale, my dad and I are so grateful to you for your brilliant work. And we're so glad to have this time with you. And now for this interview, I'm going to hand it over to my dad, John Robbins.
Well, thank you, Ocean, and thank you, Dale, for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Ocean and John.
You know, I first became aware of your extraordinary work in 2014 when you published the landmark study in the journal Aging. And what made this study so stunning to me is that you took people with Alzheimer's disease and your program boosted cognitive functioning in 9 out of 10 of them within 6 months. And this is just amazing. We have no good treatments for Alzheimer's. We have no drug that can even slow the disease progression. And yet here you were showing that your program might actually reverse this disease. And now you've come out with your wildly best-selling and marvelous book titled The End of Alzheimer's. Dale, I want to begin by asking you, is it your view now that by following the protocols you describe, that almost all Alzheimer's can indeed be prevented, and in many cases, its associated cognitive decline can actually be reversed?
Absolutely. And where things are headed, of course, is to prevention. And the reality is that Alzheimer's should be a rare disease. We contribute to it in many ways, just as we do to cardiovascular disease. And we had spent 30 years in the laboratory looking at the basic mechanisms before we started treating the first people back in 2012 and seeing that you could prevent and reverse the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease.
When the Nobel laureate, Dr. James Watson, who's the co-discoverer of the DNA double helix, had his genome sequenced in 2007, he said he didn't want to be told whether he carried the gene that conveys a heightened risk for Alzheimer's. He saw no point in exposing himself to devastating news if there was nothing that could be done about it, and at that time, he believed there wasn't. But I hear you saying, and I hear you writing convincingly, that now there really is a lot we can do about it.
Absolutely. And in fact, as you know, it's really been backwards. People have waited as long as possible because they know that there's nothing that can be done. People don't do their genomics, just as you mentioned, because they're afraid that nothing can prevent the disease. This has changed dramatically. And in fact, as you probably know, there is a wonderful website, apoe4.info, that has well over 3,000 members and rapidly growing, that has people who are ApoE4 positive and who share information, and nearly all of them are on some variation of the protocol. And they share information, they optimize their biochemical parameters, they look at their own toxic status, they look at their own genomic and metabolic status, and that is the way of the future.
Well, many people believe or have believed up until now that Alzheimer's disease is just old-timers' disease, that it's more or less an inevitable consequence of aging, and that lifestyle factors such as getting enough sleep and staying mentally active and socially engaged and getting optimal nutrition are relatively powerless against it. I know you don't see it that way at all. I know your research indicates strongly otherwise. In terms of preventing Alzheimer's, Dale, how important is optimal nutrition? Does it really make a difference what we eat?
It makes a huge difference. So as you probably know, there are 110-year-olds, so-called supercentenarians, and when autopsies have been done on people who are over 100 years old and dying, they typically do not show Alzheimer's disease. So in fact, it's not just about getting old. Yes, we all get old at some point, but the fact of the matter is that Alzheimer's disease is a disease. We were all dying of acute illnesses a century ago, and we were successful with antibiotics and public health measures, and we've unfortunately used that same strategy for the complex chronic illnesses that are now affecting so many of us. And this is a little bit like using your checkers strategy in a chess match. It doesn't work. So for things like Alzheimer's and cardiovascular disease and cancer and osteoporosis and type 2 diabetes and on, these chronic complex illnesses, you need to look at larger data sets to determine why the person developed these. But when you look at many more parameters, so everybody should know their fasting insulin, and everybody should know their T4A and their copper zinc ratio and so forth and so on, you can actually see where you stand. And you can make these diseases rare diseases. And a large part of this, we start with what we call DESS, diet, exercise, sleep, and stress. So the D comes first. It is the most important thing. As you know, it affects your fasting insulin. Insulin resistance is a huge factor in the development of cognitive decline from Alzheimer's disease. It is important what your methylation status is. It is important that you have colorful vegetables, as a matter of fact. It is important that you have low glycemic index. It's important that you have high fiber.
The brain is a living universe. It responds to how we care for it, what we feed it, how we challenge it, the ways we allow it to rest and restore. Dale, I don't think anyone would deliberately subject themselves to conditions that they knew would produce cognitive decline and dementia. But you say in your book that we are in effect doing this very thing every single day just by eating the standard American diet and living the standard American life. Can you explain that?
That's exactly right. Just as the standard American diet and the standard American lifestyle has contributed so importantly to cardiovascular disease, it is also contributing to cognitive decline in many, many different ways. And we identified initially from the biochemistry 36 different contributors. But we want to look at all of those in everybody so that we can optimize the prevention and reversal of this illness, depending on where you are with or without symptoms. So if you, in fact, are living the standard, if you've got a high-stress lifestyle, if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're not eating the appropriate diet, getting the appropriate nutrition, if your vitamin D is low, if your vitamin E is low, so forth and so on. If you have a leaky gut, these things are all critical contributors to cognitive decline. The production of the stuff in your brain, the amyloid that is associated with Alzheimer's disease, is literally a protective response, not a destructive response, a protective response to fundamentally different insults, whether it's chronic inflammation from things like trans fats and eating too much sugar, or being exposed to various mycotoxins, or whether it's loss of trophic support, nerve growth factor, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or whether it's fighting things like mercury exposure from fish, from eating largemouth, long-lived fish like shark and things like that, or high copper, things like that. All of these call out your brain's protective mechanism to put down that amyloid. If you're a country and your borders are breached by invaders, you're going to put down napalm or something to kill the invaders. That's what amyloid is. It's something that kills invaders. It is part of the innate immune system. As long as you are activating your innate immune system, you are driving yourself toward Alzheimer's or further into Alzheimer's. So we need to identify what those things are and then remove them and then reverse and rebuild the system. That's the way this works.
So if the amyloid plaques are actually a sign that the brain is working to protect itself, then the drugs that have been targeted and developed to get rid of the amyloid plaques are not going to work. And that's what we've seen mostly.
And that's exactly what we've seen.
You mentioned a moment ago the importance of getting the appropriate nutrition. I want to see if my understanding of the diet you recommend is accurate.
Yes.
What I understand is that you advocate a diet for Alzheimer's prevention that is largely plant-based, with the majority of our food comprised of vegetables, particularly the non-starchy ones.
Right.
You call for us to eliminate all simple carbohydrates,
right,
dairy, gluten, and processed foods.
Correct.
In favor of eating more vegetables and fruits and low-mercury wild fish.
Yes.
And you want us to include both raw and cooked veggies and to include as many colors as possible.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you've got to get the sulfur in there as well as the greens, et cetera, so as well as all the detox. So, again, when you look at the biochemistry that drives this illness, what you see is that everybody who is suffering cognitive decline, we typically see 10 to 25 different contributors. So everybody has contributors. You can see them on the biochemical test. We've never seen a single person with cognitive decline with fewer than 10 contributors. And so we want to optimize all of those things. So a detox approach helps to do that. If you want to be a vegetarian or a vegan, no problem. Make sure, of course, to follow your B12 and your homocysteine, but no problem with that. On the other hand, if you want to have some meat is a condiment. You start with low-mercury fish, the so-called smash fish, salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. Those are good ones because they're not the high-mercury-laden fish. And if you want to have a small amount of grass-fed beef or pastured chicken, things like that, that's okay. But again, meat is a condiment. The large part of the diet is going to be vegetables.
You mentioned homocysteine. Elevated homocysteine is strongly linked to Alzheimer's and also to heart attacks and stroke, depression, and a common type of blindness. And even small elevations in homocysteine levels can substantially increase the risk for these conditions. There was a study published in the Archives of Neurology that found that the risk of getting Alzheimer's disease is a monumental 4.5 times greater when blood homocysteine levels are in the highest 1/3. Dale, what is homocysteine and why is it so dangerous to our brain health?
Yeah, that's a very good point. There was a beautiful study out of the UK of just showing that literally as you increase above 6, which is very low actually, as you start going up, there is a beautiful association with your risk for atrophy of your hippocampus and of your cortex. So the higher your homocysteine, the more rapidly your brain is atrophying. And so homocysteine actually comes from the diet. It comes from high methionine diets. But what happens is normally, if you've got appropriate nutrition, you've got appropriate B12, you've got appropriate folate, you've got appropriate B6, you will cycle that homocysteine. So you use it as needed, you recycle it again, and your overall level of homocysteine is not very high. On the other hand, if you have an inflammatory state, or if you have poor methylation, poor nutrition, low B12, low folate, low B6, then what happens is that it literally gets hung up so that you do not cycle it appropriately. And you now start drifting up instead of a level of 6 or 7, which is fine. You may see 10 or 15 or 20 or even 25. So these things can drift up dramatically. And again, just as you said, there is association with multiple chronic illnesses, including Alzheimer's, with high homocysteine.
You mentioned that a serum homocysteine level of 6 or 7, which is micromoles per liter, is fine. But I've seen levels of 12 typically considered to be within normal limits. But as you mentioned, we know that levels that high are associated with a much higher risk for Alzheimer's. If someone's homocysteine levels are too high, and again, I think we both would say that anything over 7 or 8 should be brought down if it can be. What steps can they take to bring it down?
Very good point. And you brought up such an important point here that I want to comment on that for a moment. And that is, when you have a lab value that is, quote, within normal limits, what does that mean? Well, unfortunately, we have used statistics, not physiology, to look at what our lab values should be. And so we have very arbitrarily said that 2 standard deviations from the mean is, quote, within normal limits. Well, number one, that ignores the fact that maybe that's not optimal for you. You're telling people, well, 2 standard deviations. Okay, so you're way down here, 2 standard deviations below the mean. We know, for example, that 2 standard deviations below the mean for B12 is associated with all sorts of B12 problems. So as I tell the patients, you can die from B12 deficiency, from pernicious anemia, with a, quote, normal B12. So there's something wrong with that way of looking at things. We want to look at what's optimal, not what a statistician has told us is within 2 standard deviations of the norm. And so we want to drive people to the optimal levels. And of course, same sort of thing with homocysteine. You come in with a homocysteine of 12, you are causing brain atrophy and inflammation in your vessels, and yet you're told, oh, this is within normal limits. Same story with fasting insulin. Fasting insulin of 12, considered normal. It's not optimal. So especially when you're already suffering cognitive decline, you want to do everything possible. We always tell people, we're now going to treat you like a competitive athlete. We want to optimize all your parameters to improve your cognition. Now, with respect to your question about what can we do to bring this down, number one, you want to have an optimal B12, and you want it to be effective B12. So we usually suggest people take a combination of methylcobalamin or methyl B12 as well as some adenosine B12 to optimize that. If you take cyanocobalamin, you may not be a good methylator, and so you may not have use of that appropriately. The second thing is to take some methylfolate, again, the active form, tetrahydromethylfolate. And then third, you want to make sure that you have some P5P, pyridoxal 5-phosphate, again, the active form. And again, for all of these, as you well know, and as you have discussed, as well as anyone, these things are important to get. If you can get them in your diet, fantastic. But again, when you are actively in cognitive decline, you want to pull out all the stops. We're dealing with an emergency situation here because if you don't make the cognition better, as you know, this is a terminal illness. So we want to do everything possible to pull out all the stops, including optimizing all of those parameters.
When you mentioned B12, and how important it is in preventing and treating Alzheimer's. I'm aware of one study that found that the risk of Alzheimer's increased more than fourfold, more than quadrupled for those who had the lowest levels of vitamin B12. And I think the fact that low B12 levels are so strongly associated with greatly elevated risks for dementia is something everybody should know, particularly vegans and also older people, because as we age, our ability to absorb B12 from food tends to decrease. Dale, a vitamin B12 level of 300 picograms per milliliter is considered normal. That's usually the way they think of it. But that level, 300, is actually associated with many symptoms of B12 deficiency. And from the perspective of Alzheimer's prevention, would you consider it ideal to get our B12 levels higher to maybe 500, or what would you say?
Yes, exactly. So now what we're considering normal may or may not be optimal. So yes, we're push for 500 to 1,000. And by the way, I've talked to one B12 expert who says, well, gee, he'd like to see more like 1,000 plus. But without making major changes, 500 to 1,000 is considered the upper half of normal, and that's where we'd like to be. And again, we'd like to follow the homocysteine as well. You can also follow, as you know, methylmalonic acid, and you can look at is the B12 being effective. So we like to see it between 500 and 1,000, and you're absolutely right. We don't want someone sitting around 300 because even though their doctor may tell them this is, quote, within normal limits, it's certainly not optimal. And you may often see a high MCV, mean corpuscular volume of 100, 102, 105, which again indicates that you have you're heading for, or you have macrocytic anemia, which again tells you your B12 and or folate are low.
We've been talking about how homocysteine levels that are considered normal are often way too high and far from what would be considered optimal. And we're talking about how with B12 levels that are considered normal are often way too low from what would really be optimal. There's another nutrient or vitamin or hormone, it's all of these things, where this again applies. I'm talking about vitamin D levels. We know that low vitamin D levels are associated with significant cognitive decline, but conventional medical thinking has it that a serum level of 20 to 30 nanograms per milliliter is optimum. But you recommend aiming for 50 to 80, and I agree with you about that, Dale. But can you explain to our listeners why your vitamin D recommendations are so much higher than what are typically considered healthy levels?
Right, for a number of reasons. Number one, as you saw a few months ago, there was actually a study showing that people with multiple sclerosis did better if their levels were above 50. And as you indicated, not only is low vitamin D associated with increased risk for cognitive decline, but in fact, SNPs so alterations in DNA in the vitamin D receptors are associated with Alzheimer's. So again, another piece of evidence suggesting that this is intimately related. Now, when I was training, people said, oh, it's either Alzheimer's or it's one of these deficiencies. They didn't realize at the time these all contribute to what we call Alzheimer's. So one physician said to me, oh, vitamin D is not a cure for Alzheimer's. Exercise is not a cure. B12 is not a cure. None of those by itself is a cure. But you shouldn't ignore any of them because they are all contributors. So I mentioned the multiple sclerosis study. In addition, though, let's be fair. Much of what we do today is associated with the way we have assumed we could live. Human beings were not meant to live fully clothed indoors with no vitamin D. That's just simply something, we have introduced into our society, and we are suffering for it. So a more appropriate level, and certainly, as you know, studies have been done looking at what were likely to be levels for ancient man, and they were more likely to be in the 50 to 100 range, less likely to be down in the 20, 25 range. So this is why we suggest to people that they get into more of the 50 to 80 range. And as you know, there's been no toxicity associated with anything less than 10,000 IUs per day. So in fact, we certainly have room to move up on this number.
Yes, and I see many advantages to doing so. I want to talk with you for a moment about sleep. Now, you recommend that we sleep 7 to 8 hours a night, that we go at least 12 hours between our last meal of the night and our first meal of the next morning, and that we finish eating at least 3 hours before bedtime. Dale, why are these strategies important in preventing Alzheimer's?
For a number of reasons. Sleep is one of the most important, one of the most underrated contributors to cognitive support and cognitive optimization. And the reality is many of us who are, quote, normal are suboptimal for our own cognitive abilities because we are under stress, getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. And I hear that story a lot from people who have early cognitive decline. Well, I've got a stressful lifestyle and I really don't have time to sleep more than 4 or 5 hours. Even patient zero that I described in the book was sleeping about 4.5 to 5 hours per night. And that was one of the many contributors to improving her. During your sleep, you induce something called autophagy, which requires this fasting period to induce, and it helps to clear out damaged proteins, damaged lipids, things like that. Also during sleep, you actually produce less amyloid beta, which is associated with Alzheimer's. So you want to reduce your production. Also during sleep, you actually have a change in the architecture of your brain that literally allows a sweeping out of fluids, of damaged proteins and extracellular components and things like that. So all of these reasons, it is critical. And you mentioned the 12 hours. If you are ApoE4 negative, and again, ApoE4, it's not just a negative. It has some good things and some bad things. You are living in a third world country. You will survive better with ApoE4 because it is a pro-inflammatory gene. It's one of the things that helped allow us as hominids to descend from the trees as simians, allowed us to come down, walk on the savanna, step on dung, puncture our feet, fight with our brethren, eat undercooked food, or of course back then, uncooked food, full of microbes. We fight parasites. We fight microbes better if we're ApoE4 positive. But we also mount a more rapid and intense inflammatory response, and we resolve it more slowly. And therefore, we should know which we are. If you're ApoE4 negative, 12 to 14 hours is a good mark to use. If you're ApoE4 positive, you want to shoot for 14 to 16 hours because, in fact, you will absorb lipids better. So that's what we shoot for at night. Also, very important to know, are you desaturating at night? It's helpful to have an oximeter. One of the people we're dealing with actually has had macular degeneration and has done much, much better, showing that, in fact, she turned out to have mild sleep apnea, but fixing that has been very helpful to her. She can follow her own desaturation events. And by the way, she found out that some was also associated with being exposed to particulate matter in her home. So getting a HEPA filter, actually she could demonstrate beautifully that her oximetry was improved. So while we sleep, getting the appropriate oxygenation, appropriate blood flow, also important. So for all of these reasons, you want to have 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night if possible.
As you talk about the importance of sleep for brain health, I know that this is really a crucial issue, but I've had mixed feelings when I've seen studies that show that a lack of sleep can cause so many problems, promoted by the drug companies that manufacture Ambien or Lunesta and the other sleep drugs. Now, getting enough sleep is critically important for brain health. We know that. But, Dale, what's your view of these drugs and of their long-term impact on dementia risk?
Yeah, this is a really important point. So everything we do is based on the notion of being physiological and upstream. We want to look for the biochemical, microbial, and toxic drivers of the process. Unfortunately, our entire view of right setting, especially with infectious agents. But our entire view of this is based on subverting physiology. Let's bypass what's actually causing it. We say, look, it's too hard to figure out what's causing Alzheimer's, so let's just try a bunch of drugs and see what helps. Well, as you know, nothing has, because we haven't understood what actually causes it. So now that we understand, there is a fundamental balance we can go after with diet, exercise, sleep, stress, specific herbs, and on and on and on, optimizing your hormonal status, optimizing your living status. These are all critical. We can quit subverting the process and quit trying to do this pharmacologically. Let's do it physiologically. So physiologically, yes, you may, as you know, your melatonin may be a little low as you get older. So fine, that's a physiological agent. If it is low, you can take small amounts of melatonin. We recommend to start with a small amount. You can start with 0.5 milligram or 1 milligram, and you can go up from there. Look at, of course, are you exposed to EMFs at night? Are you exposed to noise pollution? Do you have bright lights? So many of these things. Do you have, in fact, too much stress in your life? Okay, again, as a scientist, 15 years ago, I would have laughed at the idea that meditation and joy were actually so important for preventing cognitive decline. Guess what? It turns out that they are, and the data on meditation are particularly striking, as you know. I can't ignore the published data. So the idea here is to look at what's actually causing your problem and address those. You're not low, on some, agent that some chemist made that's going to try to either give you sleep or, in fact, as you know, they're also ones to keep you awake longer. We would like to avoid those if at all possible. Now, in extreme cases where you've tried everything else, you may consider those. But the reality is 99% of people, there's an absolute reason they're exposed to too much light, or they've had too much stress, or they have a poor diet, or their hormones aren't in line, where these are the things that are causing them not to sleep well. So if you address those, and going the physiological upstream route not only gets better results, but most importantly, it gets sustainable results. And that's actually the most important result from the studies we've done so far. It's not just reversing the cognitive decline, it's that everyone who stayed on the program has sustained it, because you're actually getting at what's causing it. And as I mentioned in the book, some of the people have gone on and off the program a number of times. When they go off within about 10 days, cognitive decline occurs once again, and they go back on, and then it reverses again. So it's pretty clearly linked to doing the right thing.
One of the aspects of your program of doing the right thing that I note is that you include exercising for a minimum of 30 minutes, 4 to 6 days per week. It's fairly well recognized now that as human beings, we are constantly replenishing our brain cells, a process known as neurogenesis. You referred to this briefly earlier. But the first scientific publication that demonstrated our capacity to grow new brain cells was published just 20 years ago or so. Up until then, it was basically accepted that we have a given number of brain cells that we're born with, and after around age 18, it's just downhill from there. But now we know that neurogenesis, the growth of new brain cells, is happening in our brains all the time. I've seen studies, Dale, suggesting that aerobic exercise enhances neurogenesis by stimulating the production of the hormone called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which in turn leads to a significant reduction in Alzheimer's risk. Do you find that credible, and is that why you include exercise in your program?
Yes, on both counts. So when you exercise, there are direct pathways that show you why your cognition will improve. So in this case, with the increase in BDNF as a direct pathway, it includes how you're eating, how you're sleeping, and of course exercise as a critical piece. And we suggest people do both cardiovascular and strength training, because of course the strength training improves your insulin sensitivity, another critical variable. And of course some people like high intensity. That's great also. You just want to make sure that you don't induce a myocardial infarction in anybody. But for all of these, you can trace direct pathways to improving brain support.
There's another aspect to your program that I think might surprise some of our listeners. There are bacterium that have turned up repeatedly in Alzheimer's brains, and some of these come from our mouths. When mouth bacteria leak into the bloodstream from damaged gums, they cause problems. Dale, does this mean that good oral hygiene really plays a significant role in preventing Alzheimer's? And is this why you recommend that we optimize our oral hygiene using an electric flosser and an electric toothbrush when possible?
Yes, and as you know, it's difficult to pull apart every single variable and say, well, we can show that just this one variable changes things, just this one variable changes things, this one or that one. So altogether, the idea is that this works as a program. It's a concert. So when you look at the brains of patients who have Alzheimer's disease, what you find is an increased frequency of having fungi, of having oral bacteria, of having spirochetes, and other microbes. This is a problem. So again, what we call Alzheimer's is the activation of your innate, that's the older, evolutionarily, the older part of your immune system, which is there's a chronic activation, and you can do that by eating sugar or by eating trans fats, having a sedentary lifestyle, having a leaky gut, or having poor oral hygiene, or getting Lyme disease, or having exposure through your nasal mucosa to things like various molds and their associated mycotoxins. So as you can see, there are many roads to Alzheimer's disease, and therefore we want to identify them, prevent them, and, where indicated, reverse them. And yes, absolutely, that includes optimizing your oral hygiene.
When you speak of the many roads that lead to Alzheimer's disease, the Alzheimer's Association says that there's no relationship between silver dental fillings and the disease. But we have documented cases in which the removal of amalgam fillings, which contain about 50% mercury, has seemed to improve patients' symptoms. We have studies that suggest a role for amalgam fillings as a risk factor for Alzheimer's, and we have many studies indicating that exposure to mercury increases dementia risk. Dale, how likely do you think it is that amalgam dental fillings could play a role in some cases of Alzheimer's?
Extremely likely. So here's why. When you have tuberculosis, and this goes back to Koch's postulates, as you know, you always have Mycobacterium TB. That's the cause of tuberculosis. If you don't have it, you don't have tuberculosis. This is not the case for Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is a more complex illness. So you have many contributors to the disease we call Alzheimer's. So whereas with infectious illnesses, you have one specific agent that is associated with that. With these complex chronic illnesses, just again, as you know, for cardiovascular disease, it can be your genetics, it can be the French fries you ate, it can be the lack of exercise, it can be the high stress levels, it can be your leaky gut, it can be all of the above contributing. Alzheimer's is very much the same, but we've seen people with high mercury who have PET scans characteristic of Alzheimer's who improve dramatically when their mercury is addressed. So again, you have to ask, what's the question you're asking? If you're saying in a large group of, 1 million people, is high mercury a common cause of the problem? No, you're not going to see that because it's not an incredibly common cause. But if you now say individual A or individual B, was this an important contributor and is removing it an important way to optimize their cognition? The answer is yes.
When it comes to removing these toxic substances from our body, I'm thinking about how most of us are exposed to literally hundreds of toxic chemicals on a daily basis, including heavy metals and endocrine disrupting agents. What I want to ask you, Dale, is how effective is it in reducing our toxic load to eat detoxifying plants such as vegetables in the cabbage family? I'm thinking about broccoli and cabbage and kale and collards and arugula and Brussels sprouts and bok choy. how are those vegetables actually? Do they actually help our bodies to sequester these toxins and then to eliminate them?
Absolutely. So these vegetables are very important, as you mentioned, the crucifers, sulfur-containing vegetables as well, things like that. So here's the thing. We used to eat, as you know, large amounts of fiber, for example. And as has been pointed out in Dr. Joe Pizzorno's book, The Toxin Solution, I have to say it's one of the best books I've read this year. He goes into the change that we've had evolutionarily from eating 100 grams per day to eating 15 grams per day. So just as we've increased dramatically our intake of sugar over the years, we've decreased dramatically our intake of soluble and insoluble fiber. And so we no longer have that wonderful support to carry away the toxins. And then at the same time, we're exposed, as you said, to much, much higher levels of toxins every day. We are swimming in a sea of toxins. So we need to have our detoxifying genetics and proteins and all the various mechanisms involved with detoxification on full bore all the time. And we need to be looking at how we can optimize this. And the surprise to me, again, we looked at the things that cause Alzheimer's. And when we reported those first 10 people, and there are now over 2,000 people who are on the protocol, but when we reported the first 10, as you mentioned, one of them did not improve at all. And we started looking at, okay, there started to be a few more people that were just not showing any improvement. And we started to look into this further, and we found out that these were people who had what we ended up calling type 3 Alzheimer's disease, which is due to toxin exposure. And these people may have chemotoxins, such as mercury, organic pollutants, or they may have biotoxins, such as mycotoxins, trichothecenes, aflatoxin, ochratoxin A, things like that, gliotoxin. And surprisingly, these things turned out to be relatively common causes of Alzheimer's. In the pure, what we call type 3 Alzheimer's, represents about 20% of overall Alzheimer's cases. But if you look at how many people who have cognitive decline have some contribution from the toxins, it's more than half of them. So this is a very, very common contributor. And as you said, eating the appropriate detoxifying agents, and in fact, having an appropriate detox diet and making sure that your gut is sealed up, making sure that it is not inflamed, making sure that you have an optimal microbiome, these are all critical to cognitive support.
My understanding is that any true detox diet will include a lot of the vegetables in the cabbage family, as we mentioned, but
yes,
also would include things like avocados and artichokes, beets, dandelions, garlic, ginger, grapefruit, lemons, things like this. Would you agree with that?
Yes, all of the above.
I want to ask you about one more food thing. Most of us know that caffeine augments mental function in the short term.
Right.
But there is also considerable evidence now that coffee is actually good long-term for brain health, or at least in many cases that it is, that it helps to fight off oxidative stress, that it protects against many neurodegenerative diseases. One recent study even purports to have found that coffee consumption is associated with up to a 65% reduction in risk for dementia. Dale, what is your view of coffee, and do you drink coffee?
Well, yes, it's a really good point. So no question, coffee epidemiologically, as you said, is associated with a reduced incidence of dementia. Coffee, of course, increases your cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP is one of the most important molecules for forming memory. It is part of the memory-forming apparatus, so that having coffee is certainly helpful. Now, it also has a negative side. So again, you have to balance these things. If you're drinking it late in the day, it may affect your sleep. If you're drinking too many cups of it, as you know, it may in the long run give you the stress that's associated with a less adrenal function in the long run. So in appropriate amounts, absolutely. So we suggest to people, if they'd like to have coffee, no problem. Don't do it to the point that it's going to keep you up late at night.
Indeed, because sleep is so critical. One more thing I want to ask you about, and that has to do with copper and zinc. We know that too much copper is strongly associated with dementia. Many multivitamin and mineral tablets contain copper. If someone's going to take a multivitamin and mineral supplement, should they get one that doesn't contain copper?
So yes and no. So here's the thing. Get your copper-zinc ratio checked. You know, Professor George Brewer from the University of Michigan spent his career looking at the relationships between copper and zinc and cognitive decline. And as you mentioned, he found that too much copper associated with cognitive decline, too low zinc associated with cognitive decline. Earlier you mentioned the issue about absorption. Of course, with so many people taking the proton pump inhibitors, we see so many people with decreased zinc, decreased magnesium, decreased B12. So we try to make sure that people are not on the proton pump inhibitors. So check your copper-zinc ratio. Over 1.3 is associated with dementia. Many people, as you said, partly because of the copper in the piping, partly because, in some cases, because of taking too much copper and too little zinc, that can be a problem. But in general, if you simply increase your intake of zinc, you don't necessarily have to go to copper-free vitamins. You can if you wish, but most of the vitamins have a relatively small amount of copper, so it's often just about getting too little zinc absorption. And as you know, these actually compete with each other. So if you have too low a zinc, you're going to increase your problem with copper. So you can balance that by increasing your zinc intake. And again, Professor Brewer has a protocol he recommends for combating high copper-zinc ratios.
Well, my understanding is that our copper and our zinc levels should both ideally be about 100 micrograms per deciliter, and that the ratio between the two levels should be about equal, as you said.
Yes.
If our ratio of copper to zinc is too high, clearly that's associated with increased risk for dementia.
Yeah.
What steps should we then take to raise our zinc levels or to lower our copper?
Yeah. And by the way, when your copper goes too high, so what does it signal? It signals for your brain to protect itself by making amyloid. So you actually make more APP. It is a metal responsive gene. It responds to copper. It responds to iron. So, that's what you will respond by doing. So you can combat this. As I mentioned, there's a wonderful protocol from Professor Brewer. He recommends typically taking zinc. You can take it as picolinate, for example, and there are others you can take as well. 25 to 50 milligrams. You don't want to take more than that, so small amounts of zinc. You also want to make sure that you have some B6, and he recommends 100 milligrams, but you can do 50, for example, the P5P that we talked about earlier. He also recommends protecting yourself. There is some oxidative stress. So you want to look at alpha-lipoic acid. He also recommends small amounts of manganese. And again, you can get things, you can get these from your diet as well. But he recommends to include alpha-lipoic acid, and typically 60 to 100 milligrams of that, to include the B6 that I mentioned earlier, to include small amounts, 10 milligrams of manganese. So all of those things help you. And he also recommends, by the way, vitamin C, 1 to 4 grams per day, again, because this helps remove the excess copper and also helps to protect you against the oxidative damage.
One last question for you. A lot of people are concerned about Alzheimer's disease. It's a really dreadful thing to have a loved one go through, and a lot of people are afraid that they may have to. With many forms of illness, you feel pain, and that alerts you to the problem. If you have a migraine, if you have a high fever, you know something's wrong. But with Alzheimer's, you can go for a very long time without feeling particularly lousy. By the time you've got symptoms that are concerning enough that you go to the doctors, the disease can be relatively far along. Dale, if we misplace our keys or forget a name, some of us become frightened that this means we are on our way, or have even the early stages of Alzheimer's. Is there a way we can tell whether our momentary memory lapses are of no real concern, or whether they are in fact indications that we might be suffering from early Alzheimer's.
Yes, you've brought up a very, very important point. As I mentioned in the book, Alzheimer's should be a rare disease. In fact, it's now the third leading cause of death in the U.S. Dementia is the number one leading cause of death in the United Kingdom currently. So we can, with what we know today, make this a rare illness. Now, in the past, when you misplace your keys, you say, oh my gosh, maybe I'm getting Alzheimer's, I don't know. So everything was geared towards saying, oh, you probably don't have it, don't worry about it. So then you end up, it gets worse and worse, and finally the doctor tells you, yeah, you've got it, there's nothing we can do about it. We want to flip that completely. When you misplace your keys, you say to yourself, thank goodness, I might have gotten an early warning that I can fix now. So let's go and what we call a cognoscopy. So that's a silly term perhaps, but it's an easy thing to understand. When we turn 50, we all know we should have a colonoscopy, and that helps us to get in early and to make sure that we're not going to die of colorectal cancer. Similarly, when we turn 45 or more, we should all get a cognoscopy. These are some set of blood tests, some baseline screening. You can go online. There are very simple and free online tests you can do, or free or inexpensive, depending on which test you want to do, to look at what is your baseline cognitive status. And that combination can tell you, are you at risk for Alzheimer's? Is it possible you're in the early stages? How are you scoring on these tests? Easy to do. And if there's any question, you simply have some imaging. And if you want to be sure, you can check to see whether you have amyloid in your brain. You can get a PET scan. You can get an amyloid PET scan that will tell you whether there's amyloid there or not. Or you can get an FDG, fluorodeoxyglucose PET scan, that will tell you whether your glucose metabolism in your brain is characteristic of Alzheimer's. So the bottom line is, if you misplace those keys, there is a lot you can do today to say, am I in the early stages? Should I be on a prevention program? And again, the prevention program is going to make you healthier, is going to improve your lipid numbers, is going to improve your longevity. So a good idea for everyone to get checked and to be on an optimal prevention program. And together, we can make dementia a rare condition.
And the program that does that makes Alzheimer's rare, also reduces our risk for heart disease. It reduces our risk for diabetes. It reduces our likelihood of being obese. It is healthy in so many ways. And I think that this is a key that, while the drug companies have been spending billions of dollars looking for a drug that could just arrest Alzheimer's symptoms, now we're beginning to find that lifestyle programs can actually begin to reverse the symptoms. And this is astounding. I mean, there's a saying that everybody knows a cancer survivor, but no one knows an Alzheimer's survivor. Thanks to your work, Dale, that saying may soon become obsolete. It's been a great pleasure talking with you today. And on behalf of Ocean and myself and everyone involved in the food revolution, I want to thank you for your outstanding work. It's helping so many people. And of course, for being with us today. Thank
you, John, and thank you, Ocean. John, great questions. My wife and I have been huge fans of yours. Reaching so many people, I think this is the way to change the world. So thank you. Great stuff. So again, thank you for all the great work you do, and I really enjoyed talking with you.
We're doing it together with gratitude. Thanks so much. We've been talking with Dr. Dale Bredesen, founding president of the Buck Institute for Research on Aging, and author of The End of Alzheimer's, the first program to prevent and reverse cognitive decline. Dale, in a context where so many people think that dementia is a natural consequence of aging, your message is profoundly hopeful and deeply empowering. We're so grateful for your brilliant work and for your visionary leadership and for your partnership in the food revolution.
Thank you very much. Thanks once again.
Thank you so much to Dr. Dale Bredesen and to my dad and colleague, John Robbins, for that incredibly informative detailed, specific, practical, useful conversation. To express your opinions on what you've been hearing and to find out what other people are saying, post and engage in the comments section on our broadcast page. Make sure to refresh the comments using the button that's provided there so you can see the most recent comments that have been shared. Our next presentation will be an interview with Drs. Dean and Ayesha Sherzai. It will start at the top of the next hour in just a few minutes at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, noon Eastern Time, 4 p.m. GMT, followed by an interview with Dr. Daniel Amen at the top of the hour after that. And now I want to share and respond to a few of the really moving comments that we've been receiving. Kimberly Ferguson said, "Loving everything I am learning in the summit. The clarification on B12 and the amounts of vitamin D was new knowledge for me. Great information. Thank you, Dr. Bredesen." Well, thank you, Kimberly. I think we're all learning here. There's so much to learn. The frontiers of medical science and nutritional science are always expanding and giving us more insight into the human body and how it works and how to optimize our health and well-being now and for the long term. And I think Dr. Bredesen is onto some real breakthroughs. His study was the first in medical history to document reversal of Alzheimer's symptoms. This is a really big deal. We heard from Angela Parrish Green, who said, "I am a newbie at this wonderful lifestyle. It is what I have been looking for so long. I'm an older mother of young twin boys. I can keep up with them now. Thank you, John and Ocean Robbins, for gathering this wealth of information in one place. It is so valuable to a busy mom who doesn't have much time to research and wade through all the misinformation. You've allowed me to take care of my family and myself so we may live and thrive fully. Thank you, John and Ocean. As my sons say, share the love. Peace." Thank you so much, Angela, and blessings to your whole family. And I'm so glad you are taking advantage of this wealth of information. And I want to put out some empathy to you and everybody who is struggling with misinformation. You know, we have access today to thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of medical studies that are available from any laptop or smartphone or computer in the world. We have access to so many websites and books and resources and opinions, and unfortunately, a lot of them are wrong. So finding access to real information you can trust can be an incredible opportunity, and I'm so grateful that we've been blessed to be able to curate some of the most brilliant leading minds in the world on the topics of food and health, and to interview them specifically to bring out their genius. I think that's one of the things my dad does so brilliantly, is to bring out the unique piece of the whole that each of our presenters holds, and to help all of us feel a whole picture coming together to empower us in our lives. We heard from Chiffon Gray, who said, "Wow, very powerful interview about the brain-gut connection. My eyes have been opened. I didn't know the brain can be inflamed. I am going on B12 and many other things you recommend. This is powerful. This was an amazing interview. Thank you, Dr. Dale. I'm learning from the Food Revolution Summit." Well, thank you so much, Chiffon. I am so glad, and thank you for being here. We heard from Trudy Baker with a question. Trudy's from Alberta, and Trudy asked, "What plant-based foods can lower homocysteine levels?" Well, Trudy, what many experts recommend for lowering homocysteine levels is to reduce consumption of animal products, and especially animal proteins, and to increase your consumption of green leafy vegetables and legumes. You want an abundance of antioxidants, B vitamins, especially folate, and fiber, and these can all help you to reduce homocysteine levels and improve your overall health. We heard from Lynn Curry, who said, "I have 2 maternal aunts who died with Alzheimer's. Will eating an anti-Alzheimer's diet help avoid it altogether or just delay it if I have the genes? I have already inherited the family breast cancer genes." Well, Lynn, one of the really, I think, devastating lies of our times is that your genes are your destiny. Now, they affect your destiny, but they don't determine it. And we know clearly that what we eat and how we live has a profound impact on rates of Alzheimer's, as well as cancer, as well as heart disease, as well as diabetes, as well as so many other major ailments that so many people are living with today. Today we're focusing on Alzheimer's and dementia, and actually you're going to hear in a few moments from Drs. Dean and Ayesha Sherzai, who have concluded that up to 90% of Alzheimer's and dementia cases could be prevented with a change in diet. So genes can predispose you in a certain direction, but they do not define you. And hopefully you're learning some things here that can help you on your path. We heard a number of questions about B12. Angela Espino asked, how should individuals with a genetic inability to utilize B12 best address the issue, supplements or nutrition? And Donna Kelly said, oh my, this is amazing and timely. What a gift this series is. Please tell us what is the best way to supplement B12. Just capsules? Are some formulations better? I know this program isn't about selling anything, but it would be great to know where to go. Well, thanks for asking, Angelita and Donna. B12 is especially important for long-term plant-based eaters because there's very little of it found in plant-based foods. But it's actually a concern for everyone because about 20% of the U.S. population is deficient in B12. So taking a daily supplement may well be advisable for just about all of us. Now, there are many supplements out there. My personal favorite actually is a product called Complement. You can find it at foodrevolution.org/complement, and it's a 3-in-1. You get D3, B12, and omega-3 fatty acids, DHA and EPA, all vegan, all in one supplement. You just take it daily, and you get all three of those needs met at once in a simple spray, which tastes quite palatable. Our family uses it every day. Again, foodrevolution.org/complement is a great resource. And now we want to give away an empowerment package to Ayelen Martinez, who said, so excited for today. I've been making changes to my diet for the last 2 years, and I can feel the difference in my energy levels. Sharing this with as many as I can. Thanks to all of you who are making this possible. Well, thank you, Ayelen, and congratulations. Enjoy the Summit for Life. And now it's time for us to move to the next segment of our broadcast, an interview with Drs. Dean and Ayesha Sherzai. Welcome to the Food Revolution Summit, where we explore how you can heal your body and your world with food. This is Ocean Robbins, and I am joined by my dad and colleague, John Robbins, in welcoming our guests, Dr. Dean Sherzai and Dr. Ayesha Sherzai. Well, most of the major chronic illnesses in the industrialized world are stable or on the decline. Rates of Alzheimer's disease have gone up 70% in the last decade. This power couple believes we can eliminate 90% of Alzheimer's cases and that great brain health starts at home. And through their work, they have proven it. They're both neurologists and researchers, as well as a unique husband and wife team on the cutting edge of brain science. Dr. Sherzai have dedicated their careers to educating people about simple steps to achieve long-term brain health and prevent devastating diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia. They're directors of the Alzheimer's Prevention Program at Loma Linda University Medical Center. They help their patients adopt brain-healthy programs that they can follow for the rest of their lives. Their first and best-selling book is The Alzheimer's Solution. So now, Dr. Sherzai and Dr. Sherzai, we are so glad to have this time with you. And for the interview, I'm going to hand it over now to my dad, John Robbins.
Well, thank you, Ocean, and thank you, Dean and Ayesha, for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
It's our pleasure to be here with you, John. Thank you.
I know that both of your grandfathers suffered from dementia. My mother did also. She died of it, but not before a long and devastating process. At the end, she did not know who I was. She did not know who she was. She didn't recognize any of her loved ones. And I'm sure our listeners have their own experience of Alzheimer's and what a terrible affliction it can be. If somebody had told you 15 years ago, say, that you would be writing the first book about a scientifically proven solution to the international epidemic of Alzheimer's disease, what would have been your reaction?
It would have been the most important piece of information in our life because you always want a purpose in life. But when the purpose is so grand, so great, that's affecting millions of people and is expected to be the fastest, it is the fastest growing epidemic now, but it's expected to overwhelm the healthcare system of the United States and most first world nations. And that we would have a part in that conversation. My gosh, Is there any better life than that? A life of purpose and around, our minds, our brains, avoiding disease, but also most importantly, living vibrant, cognitively vibrant lives well into our 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond.
I would have been overjoyed if I knew that I had the tools and the resources to be involved to this level in an area that devastated my parents' lives, and we saw the pain of how our grandparents went through this. I would have been overjoyed. When you train as a neurologist in the medical system, it's a very bleak and a very cynical world. You essentially see individuals at a stage where you can't do anything about it. And there's even a joke about neurologists seeing patients with dementia and Alzheimer's disease. They basically say diagnose and adios, which means they come in, you diagnose them, and then that's basically it. You ask them to prepare themselves for the most painful journey of their lives with very little resource and help out there. And for me, and to be involved in this field with my husband, trying to understand the disease better and preventing it, and seeing people change their lives is the biggest gift that anybody could ever give me.
Well, the thought that a practitioner would say, diagnose and adios, speaks to how little conventional medicine has to offer in preventing, certainly, or even in treating Alzheimer's. I've read your book, The Alzheimer's Solution, you title it. It's a great book. I have a lot of appreciation for your insights and your knowledge and the quality of the guidance you're giving to us. But what I find particularly striking is that, it's really bold to say the Alzheimer's solution today. And if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that there really is a scientifically proven way to prevent cognitive decline, to prevent 90% of cases of Alzheimer's. You're saying, if I'm understanding you correctly, that 90% of the people, our grandparents, parents, husbands, wives, who have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's could have been spared. And you're saying further that 90% of us today can avoid ever getting the disease. And even for the 10% of us with the highest genetic risk, the disease can potentially be delayed for 10 to 15 years, which is no small thing. And you're saying that this 90% figure is based on rigorous science and has been confirmed by the remarkable results you're seeing in your clinic. Dean and Ayesha, am I understanding you correctly? Is this what you're saying?
It is exactly what we're saying.
Yeah.
We're not saying that we can reverse Alzheimer's. A lot of people have written books and have made claims, and now they're pulling back a little that they can reverse Alzheimer's. We would never say something like that. But we're saying that if we take on certain lifestyles, the earlier the better, of course, we can move the risk factor far enough where it's past our normal lifespan, 80 years and beyond. And that's significant because right now, as we get past the age of 65, 10% of the population has dementia. Then every decade thereafter, dementia, and the biggest category of dementia, which is Alzheimer's, doubles to the point where at 85, you have 50% of the population that have Alzheimer's or some form of dementia. And the genetics of Alzheimer's, except those three genes, presenilin-1, presenilin-2, and APP, which is 5% actually. So we actually were a little liberal and pushed it to 10%. If you have the gene, you're going to get it, but you can even affect that. That's the critical factor. That's the point that we need to disperse to all the communities, especially the ones that are most at risk.
Well, when you speak of those who are most at risk, I think of women. Many people are surprised to learn that 2/3 of people with Alzheimer's are women. That women in their 60s are twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's as they are to develop breast cancer. Even among those with the dreaded genetic situation, women are twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's as men with the same genetics. So to my eyes, this makes it all the more important that women take the steps and eat the foods that will give them maximum protection. Do you see it that way?
That's correct. Yes, it is important. And we're trying to understand the biology of the disease in women's brain versus the men's brain. And there are, of course, women are at a higher risk because of certain biological factors, whether it's menopause, whether it's hormones. We are actually studying that very well, but it's critical for women to apply these lifestyle changes sooner than later. And we also know that Alzheimer's and dementia are higher among the minority populations. African Americans and Hispanics have up to 2 to 3 times higher risk for developing these diseases. And the sad thing is the message hasn't really been dispersed as much as it needs to compared to other diseases like cancer and heart disease. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
I agree with you that the message that we can prevent these diseases of aging, and in particular dementia and Alzheimer's, with lifestyle, with food choices, with healthy practices, hasn't reached particularly into the minority communities. Where it has reached, I think, best is the awareness, not necessarily in minority communities, but at least in certain parts of the culture, that with diet, with a plant strong, healthy, whole foods diet and with other lifestyle practices, we can prevent heart disease. We can even reverse it. Dean Ornish was the first to prove this. It has been proven. And what I want to ask you is this. We know that the food choices and lifestyle practices that make up the Ornish program have been proven to be incredibly effective in reducing the risk for cardiovascular disease. How effective are those same food choices and lifestyle practices at reducing the risk for Alzheimer's disease?
So we think that this book is not just about Alzheimer's. It's about health in general. We believe that when you take care of the brain, you've taken care of the entire body. But when you focus on the brain, you do it so much more so, because this little 3-pound organ, which is about 2% of body weight, also consumes 25% of body's energy, which means that it's more vascular. It requires more blood, requires more oxygen, it requires more energy. It requires a more efficient way to get rid of the waste product, the lysosomal storage process. It requires a more efficient immune response. It requires, you name it, across the board. But as you recognize, all of those are involved in other organs as well. So that's why there is a great linkage between what Dean Ornish, actually, who supported our book, and then we've had many conversations with him, and what he did for the heart, the same thing for the brain. And in the brain, the same mechanisms, as you read in the book, insulin resistance and lipid dysregulation and oxidation and immune response, all are the same things that he was talking about. And now we can talk about it in the brain.
Well, our ability to have stable and healthy blood sugar levels often falters as we get older, and particularly so if we consume a diet that's high in sugar and refined carbs. We know that glucose dysregulation is very common in the early stages of Alzheimer's. So what I want to ask you is, what is the role in the development and progression of Alzheimer's and other brain diseases in sugar, and how does sugar alter brain function?
So glucose is actually the fuel that is necessary for proper cellular function, and especially neurons. They need a steady flow of glucose for the normal biological function. It's the excess of glucose and the abnormal metabolism of glucose that causes the problem. Unfortunately, we live in a day and age where almost every food is just sugar covered and sugar laden. And it's that excess and the fault in the receptors and in the metabolic processes in the brain as we age that does not allow glucose to be used normally. And so we have objective evidence in the brain where the insulin receptors stop working properly and glucose is not consumed by the cell, and the excess of glucose around the cellular structures and in the blood vessels cause a lot of inflammation, and it causes damage to the very connections that Dean was speaking about. And that results in different symptoms, starting with just being foggy to blatant cognitive impairment and destruction of the critical areas of the brain, like the hippocampus and the different areas that are responsible for memory retrieval and judgment and executive function.
The problem is not, so people think that glucose is the problem. It's not the glucose. It's the rate of release of glucose. So that's where the disparity comes in between, there are these people that talk about carbohydrates as if it's a poison. Carbs are not the problem. It's the rapid release of sugar. So if you have sugar that's released in slow, steady form, the body knows what to do with it. It uses the right amounts. The receptors are not shocked. So that usually whenever there's too much glucose, the receptors are internalized. So the cell is surrounded by glucose, yet starving. Mm-hmm. So it's the incredible amounts of sugar now in the United States and most first world countries. It's ubiquitous, and it overwhelms the system.
And so the key is to eat essentially an unprocessed diet. And if there are carbohydrates in the diet, they're bound by the fiber in the gut and they're slowly released. So the brain is not shocked. And that's what the message should be. And that's why a whole food plant-based diet seems to be the best diet for the brain.
A whole foods plant-based diet. So when whole foods, you're meaning not processed foods, not artificial foods, not not the kind of fake foods or what Michael Pollan's called food-like substances.
Right.
By plant-based, I think you're meaning a diet that gets most of its nutrition from most of its calories, for that matter, from plant sources.
Yeah.
So I've come to the conclusion that nutrition is the single most important lifestyle factor in keeping our brains sharp and resilient well into old age. I've come to the conclusion that the most important factor in our long-term brain health is the food we put in our mouths. Do you agree with me about this, or do you see it differently?
Oh, I completely agree with you.
Wholeheartedly.
I completely agree with you. There are certain factors that build the connections and build resilience in the brain, such as exercise or, keeping your mind challenged on a regular basis, cognitive activity. But, none of that matters if you don't provide the right environment for these processes to occur. And food does that exactly. That it provides the perfect environment for the brain to grow, for the brain to make those connections. And by providing it the necessary vitamins and minerals and macronutrients, you do just that.
There are people who are today spending enormous sums on brain games and on vitamins that they hope will lower their risk for Alzheimer's. Do you think that in many of those cases, that money would be better spent on fresh vegetables and fruits?
Oh, absolutely. John, we work in the clinic on a regular basis. We work in Loma Linda University and in San Bernardino clinics, and it's very common for our patients to come in with bags and bags of multivitamins. And Dean and I sit with them and we go through all those vitamins, and it doesn't work. There's just no data that any particular vitamin or even combination of vitamins in a pill form actually work and make a big difference as far as cognitive health is concerned. And we switch them to a plant-based diet, and we show them in a very quantitative way how much vitamin C they can get from, say, spinach or citrus fruits, or how much vitamin B12 they can get from, certain foods. And when you show it to them, it actually makes more sense. And the concept of synergy and harmony of these vitamins in a whole food plant-based diet makes more sense to them.
We work very hard to kind of convince people that it's not an all or none phenomenon. If you're a meat eater, if you're into pastries, getting rid of that overnight is next to impossible. So for us to kind of say, okay, at the door, by the way, eat healthy and it's all plant-based, we're going to create failure. So we create small incremental successes. And in fact, that one of the best parts of the book, we believe, is the habit creation, the science of habit creation, small steps towards the person's vision and the person's capabilities and resources. So that's our approach.
For people to take small steps or large steps to move in the right direction, they do need a vision. They do need to understand that if they move down that path that they're envisioning, they will achieve results that they want. And there's so much cynicism and pessimism about Alzheimer's in the medical community today that in order to have a positive vision and believe in it, you almost have to go against the grain of conventional medical thinking, which has been looking for a pill forever and spending billions in the effort to find one that would treat Alzheimer's well, and they've come up empty, really. Which to me, again, makes prevention all that much more important. And I'm remembering a study that it affected me. The title of the study is The Incidence of Dementia and the Intake of Animal Products. The researchers who conducted that study found that the people who ate meat, including those who only ate poultry or fish, had twice the risk of developing dementia as vegetarians. There's been other studies that have likewise implicated meat and other animal products as causative factors in the rising incidence of dementia. One review that I saw of the medical literature was titled, Losing Your Mind for the Sake of a Burger. I've actually never seen a single study that has showed any benefits to eating meat for brain health, but I'm sure your knowledge of the medical literature on Alzheimer's greatly surpasses mine. So I want to ask you, have you ever come across any study that has found any correlation between meat consumption and reduced risk for Alzheimer's?
No, there are none. As a matter of fact, on the contrary, the saturated fats in meat and the animal protein has been associated with poor cognitive function. And it's not just cognitive function. All the surrogate markers that eventually lead to Alzheimer's disease are affected negatively with a diet that is high in meat. And so, it affects blood pressure and glucose dysregulation, and it causes inflammation and all of these processes that eventually lead to damage to the critical structures in the brain, leading to dementia.
The study that you cited is actually a scientist that 20 years ago or so in Loma Linda. And we just did a study there as well, a CVLT study that showed the same kind of pattern, that a vegetarian diet, a plant-based diet, was protective as far as cognitive decline is concerned. And right now, as you might know, the profits of our book is going towards our efforts in the communities, Healthy Minds Initiative. And one of the communities that we're actually implementing this is the beach cities in California, which is Hermosa Beach, Redondo Beach, and Manhattan Beach, where we're actually implementing a brain healthy lifestyle throughout the region, 100 and something thousand people. One of the first studies of its type in the country. The same thing we're doing in Loma Linda and Inland Empire. So the studies as far as meat, there are none. As far as plant-based, repeatedly we're seeing that as far as risk of dementia, the Columbia study, the Loma Linda study, Ayesha was involved in the California teacher study. They repeatedly show that a plant-based diet significantly reduces your risk of cognitive decline and disease.
Which is so important for people to understand. Now, you run the Memory and Aging Center at Loma Linda University Medical Center, and Loma Linda is deservedly famous for being the only blue zone in the United States. And the blue zones, of course, are the areas where the people live the longest and healthiest lives in the world. The Alzheimer's rates among the population in Loma Linda, particularly the Adventist population, are very, very low. But there are neighborhoods very close there on the outskirts of Loma Linda with much higher rates of dementia. And I know you've worked with people in both of these communities, the Adventists in Loma Linda and the others nearby. So what I want to ask you is, what's the difference in their diets and in their lives, in their health?
From healthcare side, from public health side, that's our background as well. If you see numbers or the kind of difference that we see in these two populations, which are very proximal, it is bewildering. In a population where 50% are vegetarian and plant-based, then the prevalence of dementia was, and you could count it in your hands. Yet across the highway in San Bernardino, city of San Bernardino, or in the region, every conversation that we had in the community, we had dozens of people that would come to us that were in the stage of early dementia or fulminant dementia. And most of the population that came to us in the clinic was from that population. And the difference repeatedly, consistently, ubiquitously was diet, diet, diet.
Exactly.
The Loma Linda population that did not suffer dementia are mostly plant-based. And we have evidence from the mortality studies that was done there. We have evidence from the cognitive study that we did, and we have evidence from the clinic, 3,000 people. I mean, this is rich data that doesn't get any richer than this. And then prospective studies from Colombia that show that people who were placed on Mediterranean, but mostly the plant-based component, had significantly lower chance of going on to develop dementia. Yet the population that lived with a standard American diet, SAD diet, that's the acronym, had a profoundly greater risk of dementia. This is critical. This has to do with our minds, with our parents' minds, our grandparents' minds, our communities. 50% of a community being devastated by dementia is not a small matter.
No, and if this knowledge is widespread, or if it were to become widespread, people would know what they could do. They wouldn't have to be so afraid, because they would know what steps they could take to dramatically 90% reduction in their risk for Alzheimer's is a stunning thing. And you're seeing this in your studies. You're seeing this in the populations you're working with. And I'm seeing it in studies I'm reading. There was one recently published in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition. The researchers analyzed dietary data from 10 countries. They also brought in other studies that have looked at the relationships between diet and Alzheimer's. And they assessed the impact on Alzheimer's disease risk for several dietary factors. They found that consumption of meat increased Alzheimer's risk the most, closely followed by eggs, and then closely followed in turn by high-fat dairy products. But on the other hand, they found that high intakes of fruits and vegetables and whole grains significantly reduced the risk for Alzheimer's disease. Are their findings consistent with what you're seeing?
Absolutely. This is consistent with data that comes back from, early 1990s when Dr. Paul Guillaume and the Adventist Health Study showed us. He showed us that individuals who ate meat, including poultry and fish, had a 50% higher risk, or twice the risk, of developing dementia. The same thing goes in the Chicago Health and Aging Project, where they looked at 2,500 adults, and those who consumed higher amounts of saturated fats and meat over a 6-year period had higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. And when they compared them to people who ate fats derived from plants, had a significantly lower risk. And the same thing goes on and on. Kaiser Permanente Northern California group, they studied it in 10,000 individuals, and they found that those who ate a high cholesterol diet during their midlife had a 57% higher risk of developing Alzheimer's. And Women's Health Study in Harvard University back in 2012 found that people who ate a higher saturated fat diet had a faster decline in their memory by 70%. And on the contrary, when women ate less saturated fat, they had a brain function of women 6 years younger. So the studies go on, and I could list, number of them. Nurses' Health Study, for example, or the Health Professional Follow-Up Study. And these are not small numbers. We're talking about 130, 140,000 participants that were followed for 10 to 20 years. And they had reduced overall mortality, better brain health, lower cancer rates, lower high blood pressure and diabetes rates, better life standards. And this has to be dispersed in the community, because that actually, I believe this is a very empowering message for people to take care of themselves and especially their brains.
It's about changing the environment, changing some policies, but more importantly, empowering the people to know, first of all, access to knowledge, and then access to resources, and then access to habits within their home. That's the most important part. What I can do in my home in small increments that will affect me. That's been our greatest success. When people come to us, when they just stopped sugar, let's say, nothing else. You know what? It took a while. It was very difficult. But after 5 weeks, I actually feel the fog lifting. There's not, I think There are no better, more beautiful words that as a doctor that we've heard than that.
Absolutely.
Because it's about their mind.
And I'm assuming that when someone's brain fog is reduced or eliminated, they're thinking clearly now where they weren't before, their memory is improved. That is an immediate experience of improved cognitive function. Does it also foretell down the line reduced risk for dementia?
Absolutely.
There is one particular fat that has a lot of effect, as I understand it, on brain health. I'm talking about omega-3 fats. We know that people with lower blood levels of omega-3s will tend to have smaller brains and higher rates of dementia. But as you're describing, we also know how to prevent this. And one randomized controlled trial that I saw found that after only 6 months of taking an omega-3 supplement, the participants had improved cognitive function, they had less brain shrinkage, they had better brain structure, and these benefits were found to be particularly striking and apparent in older adults, who are, of course, the folks most at risk for dementia. So what's your view on the importance of omega-3 fats in brain health in general and in the development of dementia?
Yes, we agree that it is a very important element of brain health, and people who have lower levels of it are at a higher risk of developing cognitive impairment later on. There are still studies that are pending to understand the specific levels needed for cognitive health. And as you mentioned, elderly are at a higher risk, but that's because the levels had been low for a very long time. Usually these studies are cross-sectional, so they essentially measure the omega fats or the DHA at one moment in time, and they find the correlation with cognitive impairment. So, from what we understand, to the best of our knowledge, it is very important. But again, it's not just one item. It's not just DHA, but it's the synergy between that and other elements and micronutrients. For example, there was a study that came out a couple of years ago, and it showed that DHA actually works better in the body when vitamin B12 levels are high. So it was the synergistic or complementary interaction between vitamin B12 and DHA that made the most difference as far as brain health was concerned.
In your book, you have a fascinating list of what you call the top 20 brain nourishing foods. And these are foods that the more we eat of them up to a point, the healthier our brains are going to be. And one that might surprise people on your list is, and I was glad to see it, is coffee. Now, a lot of people enjoy the caffeine buzz and the daily morning ritual of a cup of freshly brewed hot coffee. We love the fragrance of it, we love the taste, and we love the buzz. In fact, some of us would have a hard time starting our days without it. But we have no trouble seeing the short-term benefits, the augmentation of our thinking. Are you saying, though, that there is something about coffee that actually makes it healthy long-term for the brain?
Even when I was at NIH, there was evidence. We did studies on caffeine and coffee and its effect on Parkinson's disease. And we saw that the thing that stood out consistently when it came to nutrition and Parkinson's, it was coffee. There's definitely a relationship, a fairly strong correlation between caffeine as well as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. So to that effect, Ayesha was very happy about that because she's
I like my coffee.
She likes her coffee.
Well, I do too. I read the cardiovascular risk factors, aging, and dementia study.
Yes.
And they came to some remarkable conclusions about coffee.
Yes, correct. They sure did.
We still don't know completely clearly what the mechanism is, and that's to be better elucidated. But we have some hints as far as its effect on adenosine and inflammation and all these other, and stimulation and everything else.
And the antioxidants in the form of polyphenols that are in coffee, seem to be very strong antioxidants and anti-inflammatories.
With our current diet, coffee actually provides a substantial amount of the antioxidants in the standard American diet, which attests both to the fact that coffee contains them and also that people aren't eating very many fruits and vegetables as a rule. But when I saw the cardiovascular risk factors, aging, and dementia study, they came to the conclusion that people who drank 3 to 5 cups of coffee per day at midlife had a 65% decrease in their risk of dementia in later life. That was just a staggering number.
No, I agree with you. I think that was a staggering number. There's been some discussion about that point in our circles, and we believe that there might be some confounding factors to that statement. People who drink a lot of coffee, generally speaking, are very active. They're very involved. They're working individuals, and so I am not sure how much does that cognitive complexity plays a role in all of this.
As well as the socioeconomic factors.
Agreed.
Yeah, but having said that, we still think that there's definitely benefit to coffee. Ironically, when they did the studies when looked at sugar and milk addition, a lot of the benefits were negated.
So when people add sugar and milk to their coffee, the cognitive benefits, the long-term cognitive benefits from coffee, are compromised. They're reduced. They're even negated, you're saying.
Correct.
Absolutely. Yes, because you're causing more damage than get the benefits of the anti-inflammatories that coffee provides.
Well, so much for Starbucks and their fancy drinks that are mostly sugar, actually.
Agreed.
Another food on your list of top brain nourishing foods that I think people will be glad to hear is dark chocolate. Now, of course, most chocolate bars in our supermarkets are full of unhealthy ingredients. They've got a lot of sugar, they've got dairy, they've got synthetic chemicals. But chocolate in its natural form, we know it's high in flavonoids, it's loaded with antioxidants, it's full of fiber, it's rich in minerals, and it contains substances that increase the serotonin and the dopamine in the brain.
Correct.
Now, we have studies showing that people who eat dark chocolate have a lower risk of strokes. Is there something about dark chocolate that relaxes arteries and perhaps helps supply oxygen and nutrients to the brain?
Absolutely. There have been studies where, the effect of dark unprocessed cocoa or cacao nibs have been looked at with regards to how does the artery react to it, and we know that when we consume unprocessed chocolate, it causes better blood flow, loss of the inflammatory byproducts in the blood vessel, and it essentially relaxes it by producing the necessary chemicals like nitric oxide in the arteries. And the brain is probably the most vascular organ there is in the body. And all those tiny hairline blood vessels, all of them benefit from these chemical processes that dark chocolate provides.
Well, that's wonderful. Mushrooms are also on your top 20 brain nourishing foods list. Are you referring to medicinal mushrooms like shiitake or turkey tails or lion's mane, these kind of exotic mushrooms? Or are you also referring to common mushrooms, things like portobellos?
Both. The common mushrooms are as good as the medicinal ones, whether they're fresh or dried. Overall, mushrooms are incredibly high in anti-inflammatories, and they've been known to reduce inflammation in blood vessels, especially in the brain.
Well, you also have seeds on your list. I mean, I saw flax seeds and chia and sunflower seeds on your list, and I think most people are familiar with sunflower seeds. But how would you suggest people consume flax and chia seeds, which aren't as well known in our culture? And for that matter, how important are flax seeds and chia seeds to optimal brain health? Is there something that they contain that is special?
So the seeds are great sources of omega-3s that reduce inflammation, and they help with regulation of the immune system. And they're also very high in vitamin E and selenium and certain minerals that are responsible for creating the important structures in the brain. Yes, I agree with you. They're not very common, but we try to teach our community members and our patients by, adding them to different dressings and cereals and baked goods. They actually work very well as binders in, baked goods like whole wheat muffins, and they are delicious when they're used as salad dressing. If you blend flax seeds and chia seeds with, say, raspberries or pomegranate juice with apple cider vinegar, they create that the binding structure for them, and they're quite delicious. And it's an easy way to incorporate it in our daily diet.
Well, one of the top brain nourishing foods on your list that I think just about everybody would enjoy the pleasure and taste of is blueberries. And blueberries, of course, have gotten a tremendous amount of press as brain nourishing foods. And I think that reputation is well deserved. There was a study I'm thinking of right now, was published in the Annals of Neurology, where researchers analyzed data from 16,000 women, and these were older women. The average age was in their 70s. And they found that the women with the highest levels of blueberry consumption delayed their cognitive aging by 2.5 years. Now, other studies have found that even common strawberries or raspberries or blackberries have benefits, sometimes enormously, for brain health. And I've been so impressed by these studies that I now include berries, usually blueberries, but also raspberries and blackberries and strawberries in my diet pretty much every day.
Absolutely. Yes, they're the saviors. They're available everywhere. Everybody's familiar with them. They're cute. Kids love them, adults love them, and it's an incredible source of, the most beneficial foods and minerals out there.
And one more food I want to mention from your list of great food for the brain, and I think it's one of the most important ones, and that's greens, green leafy vegetables.
Yes.
So speak to us about greens.
Well, what can I say? We've known and we've been told to eat our greens for a very, very long time. And, we now have objective evidence of why that is so. Why is it important to eat leafy green vegetables, especially, in a raw form? Because they're a very important source of polyphenols, which are antioxidants. And, say, for example, on a regular day, our brain creates a lot of free radicals and byproducts that we need to get rid of. Well, greens actually provide the right environment to get rid of all of these completely. And you study, you read all these studies coming out from the Mediterranean region saying Mediterranean diet this, Mediterranean diet that. When you do special statistics called factor analysis, which highlights, the top foods in that dietary pattern, it always is the greens. It's the greens that stand out in each and every dietary pattern, whether it's Mediterranean, whether it's Asian, whether it's the DASH diet, which is low in salt and low in saturated fat, whatever it may be. We recommend that, half of the plate should be covered with greens and half should be everything else. If you look at it, most of the times the greens they're not prepared very well. They're not served well. It can easily be the most delicious form of food out there with a little bit of, cutting techniques and serving it beautifully. We have 2 kids, and if they don't like something, we will never recommend that to any of our patients. So, we've learned through trial and error to make it delectable and delicious and readily available for everyone.
What would be a recipe for your favorite way to have greens?
We love bowls. One of my favorite bowls, and I'm going to speak for Dean as well because I know he loves it, is the Mediterranean bowl. So it consists of kale and quinoa and sweet potatoes and roasted chickpeas with Mediterranean spices. And the dressing is tahini sauce with garlic, lemon, and dill. And I cut the kale into very small pieces and I massage them before serving it. And, with the tahini sauce and with the quinoa on board, it's probably one of the most delicious
I have to correct
everywhere.
that. The massaging is my job. So,
That's right. Yeah. Yes, Dean does
my
that.
only job.
It seems to me that what we're really talking about here isn't just reducing Alzheimer's risk, as important as that is, but we're also talking about overall brain health and the fact that the same food choices and lifestyle practices that reduce your risk of dementia also enhance your ability to think clearly at every stage of your life. And I think that is of supreme importance.
Absolutely. We believe, and sometimes when we say this, a lot of the physicians get offended, but there's no offense to any cardiologist or any nephrologist out there. we think the brain is the most important organ in the body, and all the other organs are there to serve the brain, because our emotions, our judgment, our personalities, our decisions, they arise from the brain. And if we take care of the brain and we get rid of that fog, and we get rid of that glooming sadness or that feeling of not being able to control our life, when that's gone, everything else starts from there. We start taking good care of ourselves. We can make decisions better. Motivations come easier, and objectively, the habit pathways are formed in the basal ganglia, which are areas of the brain that are responsible for habits. And so, if we provided the right environment by eating well, by exercising, by sleeping well, by having a community and love in our life, everything else falls in place.
And you definitely take care of the heart, liver, kidney, everything else in doing so.
You know, when you say the brain is the most important organ, certainly it's about 3% or so of our body weight, but it consumes something like 25% of the oxygen and the energy in our bodies, and particularly its sleep. So that seems to substantiate your thought that it is the most important organ. One thing that's clear is that it's very hard to overstate the importance of being able to think clearly, to think deeply, and to use the marvelous brain that we've been given to its highest potential. When your brain is clicking on all cylinders, when you're not experiencing brain fog, you're able to imagine, you're able to create, you can envision possibilities and how to bring them to fruition. And all of this strikes me as a profound part of what it means to be human.
Absolutely. So it's very, very important for us to realize that this concept that as we age, we're expected to have cognitive decline should be thrown out the window. In fact, the complete opposite should be expected. Yes, there are some changes as we get older. For a great majority, there's a millisecond of slowing as far as processing, as far as retrieval. But if we've taken care of our brain, if we have done all that's necessary, starting with food, but definitely with sleep and cognitive activity, challenging, purpose-driven cognitive activity, social activity, if we've done all this, the brain will actually continually grow well into your 90s, grow physically, because these connections, we were talking about each neuron making as many as 30,000 connections, continue to grow. But more importantly, our pattern of thinking, our cognitive pattern of thinking changes from one that's very linear and binary and simplistic as we are very young, to one of three-dimensional thinking, which is what was called wisdom, but we can give it a more neuroscientific perspective, which is taking all the information in a much more profound and grander vision. That's not soft concept. That's something that we've seen repeatedly in our patients in their 90s, or our communities men who lived in their 90s. Dr. Wareham, who was a surgeon here in Loma Linda, did surgery at 95, not just supervising surgery, open to closed surgery at age 95, and many others. So we can definitely continually have vibrant brains well into our 90s and beyond. That's the expectation that we should all have. It's even beyond just Alzheimer's. It's us living vibrant, brain-healthy lives.
Well, your contribution to us living vibrant, brain-healthy lives is tremendous, and is something I really appreciate about you and your work. And I want to thank you both, Ayesha and Dean, for your outstanding work, for your profound caring for people, and of course, for being with us today.
It's our pleasure, John. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
We've been talking here with Dr. Dean Sherzai and Dr. Ayesha Sherzai, directors of the Alzheimer's Prevention Program at Loma Linda University Medical Center, and authors of The Alzheimer's Solution, a breakthrough program to prevent and reverse the symptoms of cognitive decline at every age. Dean and Ayesha, your message is revolutionary, and it offers hope and health to millions. We want to thank you for your years of brilliant leadership, for your fabulous book, and for your partnership in the food revolution.
Thank you so much. And we're hoping to partner with you for many years going forward.
Thank you so much for having us.
We look forward to it.
Thank you so much to Drs. Dean and Ayesha Sherzai and to my dad and colleague, John Robbins, for that powerful conversation. To express your opinions on what you've been hearing and to find out what other people are saying, post and engage in the comment section at the bottom of or on the side of our broadcast page. Make sure to refresh the comments using the button you'll find there so you can see the most recent ones. Our next presentation will be an interview with Dr. Daniel Amen. It will start at the top of the hour in approximately 12 minutes. Now, we have noticed some technical issues with our audio stream. Our tech team thinks they have a fix for this, and to implement it, we are going to have to reset some things. You might experience a moment of pause in the broadcast. If it lasts more than 20 seconds, please refresh your browser. So we're going to do that now. And I will keep on going, and you may miss a moment, and then hopefully we'll be right back with you. And now I'm going to respond to some of the comments that have come in so far. We heard from Lily Lightbridge, who asked, does it seem that more women than men have Alzheimer's, and if so, why? Well, as my dad mentioned, 2/3 of the people who get Alzheimer's are women. One reason is that women tend to live longer than men, and Alzheimer's risk increases dramatically with age. There might be other reasons as well, including potentially menopause or hormones. But what I think is most important here is that all of us, and perhaps most especially women, can apply these learnings and reap the benefits. One of the things I found especially illuminating in what we just heard is that the groundwork for Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia is often laid decades before the onset of symptoms. And what this tells me is that whatever age or stage of life you're at, and whatever your gender is, the best time to apply what we're learning in this summit is now. We heard from Lena Spicer, who said, Drs. Dean and Ayesha, I not only hear the passion between the two of you, but I hear the passion about what you're doing and what you believe. I love the entire talk, as you all made it possible for me to understand. John and Ocean, you two have gone beyond the call to bring all of us to a happy, fun, energetic, healthy, and loving live program. Well, thank you so much, Lena, for joining in this journey with us. We are so grateful to have you with us. We heard from Brenda Chiavarini, who said, this topic is near and dear to my heart. My mom had Alzheimer's, and I was her caregiver. I witnessed the awful effects of this disease. She died 2 years ago. I'm doing everything I can to help protect my mind. All this information can make such a big difference. I'm trying to get as many of my family and friends to listen to these speakers as possible. It's difficult to have them believe the information without having them hear it themselves. I want to help as many people as I can. Well, Brenda, I'm so sorry about your loss and your mom's suffering. And I'm so glad that you are participating and learning and engaging. And, of course, your loved ones actually can hear it themselves. That's why we're putting on this summit. So thank you for inviting them to join in. And if you do decide to get an empowerment package, then you can own and share it for life, which is also a wonderful resource. We heard from Ron Weiss, who said, I'm 65 years old and in top physical shape. My dad was already in the final stage of Alzheimer's at my age, but I've been plant-based for over 4 years, and my health and cognition have zoomed. The Great Spirit has watched and guided me all my life. Well, Ron, thanks for sharing, and congratulations to you on your experiencing the results of healthy choices. We heard from Emily Pham, who said, I'm so grateful for this summit. It has been so informative. One question we have as a young family is, what should we watch out for as we switch our kids, 2 and 4 years old, to a plant-based diet? Well, Emily, first off, we can't give medical advice, and I want to make that very clear. That's not what this is. This is sharing resources, research, information, insights, ideas, and education. With that said, the top nutrients that a lot of plant-based parents want to share with their kids, and the 3 that we give to our kids every day, are omega-3 fatty acids, particularly DHA and EPA, as well as B12 and D3. Now, there are others that some kids need, from forms of iron to other things, depending on their blood work and other factors. But those three are pretty widely helpful. And I mentioned earlier, and I'll say again, that there is a source of all three of these that is a supplement that you can get all at once, and it's in a spray form that can be put directly in the mouth or sprayed on food or added to foods. And it's a product called Complement. If you go to foodrevolution.org/complement, that is a great source, and our kids take it every day. We heard from Dan Avery, who said, "You're using a lot of terminology that's leaving me in the dark. I'm sure people in the medical field are following smoothly, but what about the rest of us?" Well, Diane, we have a huge range of participants here. We have lots of doctors and nutritional experts, and we have everyday lay folks who are wanting to learn what to do to support their family. So, of course, some of the information may be a bit complex at moments, and we're doing our best to try to make it tangible and grounded and practical. And hopefully, along the way, if there's a spot you miss, keep listening and tune in for all the spots you can grab, because I'm sure there will be a lot of them. And also keep in mind, everybody, that the empowerment package gives you the transcripts, which is a pretty incredible resource if you want to really dive in and own it and absorb it at your leisure. When I was hearing Dr. Bredesen, I was hearing so many specific, tangible ideas this morning, and I wanted to write everything down, and I was so glad that I have it all recorded in the empowerment package transcripts. We heard from Cindy Rorigan, who said, "The links between saturated fats and dementia are startling. If one has had years of high saturated fats, can the damage be reversed?" Well, Cindy, this is a question a lot of people are facing because, of course, most of us haven't done everything perfectly our whole lives, and some of us are struggling with the results of living in a culture where toxic food is the norm. And what I want to say is that the less well you have eaten, let's just use that terminology for a moment, the more benefit you can derive from a change. So we all have a stake in doing what we can with what we know. None of us can rewrite history, but we all do define our destiny with the choices we make every day. And so absolutely the effects of a high saturated fat diet, the effects of high processed food diet, the effects of a high sugar diet can be reversed by making changes now. And you can reap tremendous benefits, and we hope you're getting support for that journey. Daniel O'Doherty from Danville, California, is battling stage 4 metastatic pancreatic cancer. Several years ago, she was given 4 months to live, but she's still going, and she's participated in our past summits, and she asked if she could share her story, and we said yes. So here is a little pre-recorded message from Danielle O'Doherty.
I've been navigating an advanced stage 4 metastatic pancreatic cancer diagnosis, stage 4 for the last 3.5 years, where I was given 4 months to a year to live. I came across the Food Revolution Network kind of serendipitously this past summit, and I decided to buy the empowerment package, and I got online, and it was like coming home. It was like I found my tribe. All of these dots that I was trying to connect and find on my own, it was all in one package for me, and it just made sense. Ocean, you and I have done many, many miles in the car together. I live in a rural part of Oregon and do quite a bit of driving with my daughter. And we drive and drive and drive, and there's you, and then there's Deepak, but so many great speakers. The message, I just so appreciate it. When I'm lost, it reels me back in. I think the point is that it's transformative, and it's available to everybody, and it doesn't require a copay, and you don't have to fight your insurance. You can change your life. You can save your life. You can change things for your family. So I thank all the people that have come and brought all of this together. So it has saved my life. So bravo to Ocean and John. I listened, I heard, I'm thriving, and I want to help take that message forward.
Well, thank you so much to Danielle for sharing those words and living this experience. You know, we're all going to die at some point, but we don't have to be the cause of that death. We can choose life and maximize life and make the most of every precious moment we have on this earth. And I'm so grateful for it. And I'm so grateful for you, everybody participating right now, and that you're taking the time to learn and to get informed and to put what you're learning into action, because what you're learning doesn't just affect you, it sends out ripples to everyone you know and love. We heard from Felisa Miller, who said, John and Ocean, I'm so grateful that you are addressing dementia today. My family has been devastated by this disease. My father and I had a perfectly normal time at dinner on July 4th, 2010. In fact, he drove. Within a month, his dementia came on so quickly he could no longer walk or hold a conversation, and he lived like that for 6.5 years before he died. My mother-in-law's dementia came on a lot slower, but it was equally heartbreaking. I don't want to put my children through what my husband and I have been through with our parents. I'm so happy to have this valuable information to help prevent this disease. Well, Felisa, we are so glad you have this information too, and we want to support you in applying it and living it and really owning it. So we're going to gift you with an empowerment package. Our team will follow up with you. Congratulations. You will now own the MP3s and the transcripts for life, so you can absorb it all at any time or place you want, and you can share it with your own children when the time is right, and with your husband and with everyone you love. Congratulations. And congratulations also to all of our most recent empowerment package owners, including Stephen from United Kingdom, Ken from Norway, Rhonda from Texas, Lori from Illinois, Tanya from Germany, Richard from Florida, Christy from Connecticut, Sue from New Hampshire, Chantal from Quebec, Linda from Tennessee. We're so grateful that you are seizing the day and getting this information for life. And in a moment now, you're going to hear us on the line with New York Times bestselling author Dr. Daniel Amen. But first, a 1-minute video about the Food Revolution Network mission. Here we go. At Food Revolution Network, our mission is healthy, ethical, and sustainable food for everyone who eats. We want kids to learn about healthy food in school. We want doctors to learn how nutrition impacts health in medical school. We want the routine use of antibiotics banned from factory farms. We want a world where everyone, regardless of their ethnic or economic background, has knowledge of and access to healthy food for their family. We want a world in which heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, obesity, and diabetes are rare, and in which vibrant health is the status quo. We're spreading the word and standing for change. And with every empowerment package purchased, we make a donation to Trees for the Future, enabling them to plant an organic fruit or nut tree in a low-income community. Join this movement and support this mission. Welcome to the Food Revolution Summit, where we explore how you can heal your body and your world with food. This is Ocean Robbins, and I am joined by my dad and colleague, John Robbins, in welcoming our guest, Dr. Daniel Amen. If you love your brain and you want to stay sharp at every stage of your life, you're going to love this interview. Dr. Daniel Amen is a physician, a double board-certified psychiatrist, our mission is healthy,
a 10-time New York Times bestselling author,
for everyone
founder
who
of
eats.
Amen Clinics,
We want
and a
kids to learn
distinguished
about
fellow
healthy
of the
food in
American
school.
Psychiatric
We
Association.
want doctors to learn how
Dr. Amen is
nutrition
the lead
impacts health
researcher
in
on the
medical
world's
school.
largest
We
brain
want the
imaging
routine
and brain
use of
rehabilitation
antibiotics
study
banned
on professional
from factory
football
farms.
players,
We want a
which
world
has
where
established
everyone,
scientific
regardless
basis
of their
for
ethnic
profound
or economic
problems in the sport
background,
of football,
has knowledge
and also
of and
pathways
access
towards
to
solutions.
healthy food
Dr.
for their
Amen's
family.
12
We
popular
want a world
television
in which
shows
heart
about the
disease,
brain have raised more than $55 million for public television. So now, Dr. Amen, we are so glad to have this time with you. And for this interview, I'm going to hand it over now to my dad, John Robbins. Well, thank you, Ocean. And thank you, Daniel, for being with us once again.
What a joy for me to talk to both of you.
Well, a joy to have your voice in our summit and reaching more and more people in the world with your Very important message, and very well substantiated and documented and proven message. You know, we're learning more and more today about how the food that we eat impacts our physical health. That's becoming more and more well known and recognized. But somehow, the idea that what we eat might influence our brain health and our mental health has been comparatively often overlooked. I've read your wonderful new book, Memory Rescue. And if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that conditions including Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, and also depression, attention deficit disorder, PTSD, even bipolar disorders, are all deeply influenced by the food we eat. Daniel, am I hearing you accurately?
Yeah, food is medicine or it's poison. And we have this epidemic in the United States, it's really global now, of toxic food leading to smaller brains and brains that are in trouble. I argue that we're actually in a war for the health of our brains. Everywhere you go, everywhere, and I travel a lot, someone's trying to shove bad food down your throat that will kill you early. The real weapons of mass destruction. And I'm not kidding when I say this. ISIS has nothing on our food industry. The real weapons of mass destruction are highly processed, pesticide-sprayed, high glycemic, low-fiber food-like substances stored in plastic containers that are destroying the health of America. And it's not okay, because my 5 grandbabies, their generation, will never be able to afford the tsunami of illness that's coming their way. And that's a serious wake-up call. When you know Alzheimer's disease is expected to triple in the next 25 years, and all of the drug companies are actually getting out of the Alzheimer's business because they won't find one medicine. Medicine after medicine has failed. And the answer is lifestyle.
And an important part of that lifestyle is the food we eat. We know, everyone knows really, that too much alcohol poisons the liver. We know, it's very widely recognized, that smoking causes lung cancer. But for some reason, we don't as readily see that brain fog and cognitive decline and dementia can be direct consequences of what we're eating. Somehow we have a hard time grasping that the brain is deeply damaged by poor food choices, perhaps more so even than any other bodily system. Daniel, what do you say to those who have difficulty realizing that our cognitive health is inextricably linked to our overall health, and that when we eat poorly and fail to optimally nourish our bodies, our brains too will suffer?
Well, I think the science is just so clear that for people who argue with it, it's like, come on, do you read that I published 2 studies, and other people have replicated it, that show as your weight goes up, the physical size and function of your brain goes down, which should scare the fat off anyone. But as blood sugar goes up, the size and function of the brain goes down. Obesity and diabetes are a direct result of the food we put in our body. So it's just painfully clear to me. And it's funny, when I first started looking at the brain, that's what we do at Amen Clinics, and I have 8 clinics around the country. We do a brain imaging study called SPECT that looks at blood flow and activity. Before I looked at my own brain in 1991, I didn't care one whit about it. And I'm a double board certified psychiatrist. I had medical school, 5 years of postgraduate training, and I just didn't care because I didn't see it. But as soon as I started looking at it, I'm like, oh, this isn't good. This needs to be better. And how do you make it better? You stop hurting it and you start doing things that help it. And a major intervention is the food you eat.
When we eat poorly, when we consume too much alcohol or eat junk food, we take toxins into our bodies that then course through our bloodstreams and enter our brains. where they can harm our brain's ability to create new brain cells. And as a result, then our brains will begin to shrink or atrophy, while healthy diets are strongly associated with bigger brain size. You've mentioned something about smaller brains. Daniel, is bigger better when it comes to the human brain?
Generally, yes, bigger is better. Anything that makes it smaller. So alcohol. And just that you mentioned alcohol, so many people in the U.S. think alcohol is a health food. Oh, I have to have my 2 glasses of red wine a day. And I take that idea on in the book because alcohol is directly related to 7 different kinds of cancer. Why does my wife, who's a nurse, put alcohol on your skin before she draws blood or gives you a shot? Because it kills bacteria. Well, what do you have in your gut? You have 100 trillion bacteria and viruses, fungus, and so on. And alcohol is just not a health food. So if we get that out of the way, less is clearly better. But when it comes to your brain, everything that shrinks it is bad for it.
Is there a link between brain size and obesity?
It is. In fact, these 2 studies I published. So the original study was published in 2008 or 2009 at the University of Pittsburgh by my friend Cyrus Raji. And they looked at MRI studies. And what they found is people who were overweight, had a BMI between 25 and 30, had 8% less volume in their brain, and their brains look significantly older. People who are obese had even less volume in their brain, and their brains look 16 years older than a healthy population.
So the more obese someone is, the more likely they are to have a brain that's aging more rapidly and shrinking. What is the dinosaur syndrome? I know this is a phrase you've used, I think.
Yeah, and it's very rude, and I apologize for it. Once I published these studies and became quite horrified, I personally lost about 30 pounds after I figured out this connection. I was always a little chubby and tried every diet to lose weight, and nothing worked until I realized I was hurting my brain, and now I had the motivation to get it right. And interestingly, when I fixed my vitamin D level, my cravings went away. So that'd be an interesting thing to talk about. But I'm on a plane for public television going from Chicago to Des Moines, and I only have small planes. And there's a woman next to me that's 400 pounds at least, and half of her body's in my seat. And that concerned me for her. And I went, oh, you want to tell her not to be a dinosaur, big body, little brain, you're going to become extinct. And then, of course, the next thought I had in my head was, shut your mouth. Don't ever say that out loud. And then I told my wife about the dinosaur syndrome when I got off the plane, and she said, shut your mouth. Don't ever say that out loud. But there's a New Testament Bible verse that I'm very fond of, John 8:32. Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Like, people need to know about this. And so I debated, and I put it in a book, and I put it in a public television special. And no lie, John, I have had people write to me saying because of the dinosaur syndrome, they've lost 100 pounds, 200 pounds, 400 pounds because they didn't want to be a dinosaur. We need to take the obesity crisis seriously. And it's not more, Nutrisystem, Jenny Craig, whatever, because if you actually read the labels of the food they send you, it's completely filled with crap. And that's not okay. Because, the food additives and artificial chemicals and sweeteners, they are not good for your brain.
No, when you had the reticence, feeling it was rude to use the phrase dinosaur syndrome, I agree with you. Nobody should ever be stigmatized or shamed for being overweight. People who are carrying extra pounds have plenty of difficulties in our society. We don't ever want to add to them. And if they know that losing weight would have many advantages, but one of them is that their brains would be healthier and younger. and they'd be less likely to experience cognitive decline as they get older, less likely to have Alzheimer's, perhaps much less likely. I could see how that would be a motivating factor that might give them the courage, the strength, whatever they might need to find themselves in a healthier sized body.
Yeah, no question. I used to be maybe not as tactful as I could have been, but I saw how it would hurt someone's feelings, and so I've tempered the message, because the obesity epidemic is really not an individual person's fault. When you are bombarded with constant messaging to hurt yourself, and then constant sort of confusing scientific messaging that's out there, oh, I should eat this and not that. And then the food companies actually hire scientists. So they hire neuroscientists like me, and they go, let's get to the bliss point. Let's combine fat, sugar, and salt to create that perfect taste that explodes with flavor in your mouth. And so people will tell you they love Oreos, or they love Coke, or they love, Cheetos, and it's because their brains have been hijacked by scientists for money, and I'm not okay with that.
When you talk about people saying they love junk food, it reminds me of relationships with people. We can fall in love with people who are good for us, and who resonate with and reflect our highest potentials and reflect our inner beauty and remind us of it. Or we can fall in love with people who drag us down and who are addicted and lead us into dark places. Finding foods that we love, that love us back, that are good for us, seems to be the trick.
When you do the right thing, well, then you get what you really want. So that's an act of adult love, mature love. When you want what you want just because you want it, well, that's a 4-year-old. I know of the hundreds of thousands of people who are listening to this, there are some people listening that have been like me and have had bad relationships in the past. So not all of my relationships have served my well-being. And I'm married to Tana, who, we've been together the last 12 years, and I'm so much happier when I am in a relationship with someone who loves me back. And, I am not going to be in love with food that hurts me. I'm not going to tolerate it in relationships. I'm for sure not going to tolerate it in food or things to drink that don't love me back. But what I've learned is the brain hates change. And so you have to be very careful what you allow your children to fall in love with, or what you allow yourself to fall in love with. Why do people stay in abusive relationships? Why do people continue eating the same thing even though they're obese and have diabetes and arthritis and depression and cognitive impairment? Because the brain hates change. So you have to be very careful what foods you fall in love with.
Well, some people love, or say they love, they're intensely attracted to, maybe even addicted to bad foods. They experience cravings. You mentioned a moment ago that in your journey, vitamin D played a role in reducing your cravings. And you actually said something about, maybe we'll talk about it further. I would like to.
So important for me. So I live in Southern California, where the sun is out 330 days a year. But I don't go outside during the day, mostly because I work. And so normal vitamin D levels between 30 and 100, and my level was 17. And I'm like, oh no, because low levels of vitamin D are associated with cancer, heart disease, depression, dementia. And then I realized it's also associated with leptin resistance. So leptin is the hormone that tells you you're full and you don't need to eat anymore. Well, when your vitamin D level is low, you become leptin resistant. And so when I noticed that, more than 10 years ago, I suppose now, I got more sun and, in a healthy way, and I started taking vitamin D. And almost immediately, my cravings went away. And I'm like, that's so easy. It's really important. 70% of the population is low in vitamin D. If you have a level under 20, like I did, compared to someone who's over 40, you have more than twice the risk of getting cancer.
I know that that your clinics have published scientific studies on the impact of nutritional supplements on the brain. Are there, we've talked about vitamin D, are there other specific supplements that you have found to be uniquely helpful to optimize brain function?
I have. Actually, a brand new study out on curcumin, significant improvements in memory. It's like, well, how simple is that? You know, it's from the spiced turmeric that they make curries from. And there's a lower incidence of Alzheimer's disease in countries that eat a lot of curries, like India. Curcumin is really good for two things: decreasing inflammation, and it also helps in the genetic risk factor, because when you mix curcumin with vitamin D, it tends to break up the plaques thought to be responsible for Alzheimer's disease. And so if you have you have it in your family, I would make turmeric your friend. According to the CDC, 90% of Americans do not eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, the minimum required to get the nutrition you need, and especially B6, B12, folate, not folic acid, folate, are essential for brain health. There's actually a number of studies where they looked at people who had memory problems that were sort of headed to the dark place, and just taking B6, B12, and folate decreased the conversion of mild cognitive impairment. I have memory problems, but I don't have Alzheimer's. But it decreased the conversion of mild cognitive impairment to Alzheimer's. I'm like, well, that's simple to do. Vitamin D, as we discussed, I'm a huge fan of omega-3 fatty acids. If someone's a vegetarian, it's like try to get them from either really high-quality supplements or algae-based DHA. But we still have the problem with EPA, and I don't know how to fix that.
Well, the conversion rates from ALA, from the omega-3s found in flax seeds and walnuts, to DHA and EPA, the longer chain omega-3s, is, as you said, difficult. It varies a great deal from person to person. There's no test to know if you're a good converter, an efficient converter or not. And that's one of the reasons we recommend that anyone who is a vegan take algae-based DHA. The conversion from DHA to EPA is actually much simpler and easier. You're already into the long chains. But I want to take a step back. You talked a moment ago about fruits and vegetables and how few people actually in our society get even the recommended amount. And the recommended amount is, in fact, significantly lower than what would be the optimal amount. And I'm thinking right now of a study that involved dozens of different fruits and vegetables, all of which have different phytochemical profiles. And the researchers found that the different fruits and the different veggies support different cognitive functions. The consumption of certain fruits and vegetables was associated with better executive function, perceptual speed, and long-term memory. The consumption of others was more consistently associated with enhanced visual spatial skills and improved short-term memory. Now, I think the take-home message from this is that we need to eat a wide spectrum of fruits and veggies in order to cover all the bases. We have an overwhelming body of evidence now that a healthy diet filled with unprocessed, low glycemic foods like green leafy vegetables dramatically improves blood flow and also lowers our risk for heart disease, for inflammation, for obesity, and diabetes. I'm hearing that you're finding that the same diet choices that are so effective at preventing and even reversing these diseases are also effective at lowering our risk for depression and for Alzheimer's disease. Daniel, would you agree with me on that, or do you see it differently?
No, I'd absolutely agree with you. In fact, there's one study that showed there was a linear relationship between the number of fruits and vegetables you ate a day and your level of happiness. So 4 was better than 2, and 6 was better than 4, and 8 was better than 7. So up to 8. More than 8, it didn't seem to make as much of a difference. But, there's just no side effects to increasing your fruits and vegetables as opposed to, going on Prozac or something like that. Now, it doesn't mean I'm opposed to medicine, because I'm not, for people who need it. But why don't we do the simple things, the smart things first, and then if you need medicine, that's the next step. But it's not the first step. And unfortunately, because people go to their family doctor and in a 7-minute visit, they'll get something for anxiety and something for depression and something for sleep, which is just ludicrous, when he could have given them a prescription or eat from the rainbow. I want you to put, 4 different colors of fruits and vegetables in your diet every day.
When I think of colorful fruits, I think of berries, the deep blue blueberries and darker blackberries and brilliant raspberries and strawberries and even cherries and grapes. I mean, these fruits are beautiful, and they're multicolored. And those colors are not just accidental. They actually signal to us, to a deep part of our brain, that they contain nutrients that our brains and bodies need for optimal functioning. Blueberries in particular have a fantastic reputation for helping with brain health. Daniel, is that reputation deserved?
For years, they used to call blueberries brain berries. But for sure, you want to get them organic or don't eat them, because blueberries hold pesticides more than most fruits. But I'm a fan. I'm a fan of blueberries. I have a cup every day. I'm a fan of pomegranate seeds. I just, I'm looking, whatever I put in my mouth, I'm like, do I have 4 colors going on here? Because they have polyphenols and flavonoids, compounds that are like medicine that help me. And so I find the taste that I love that loves me back.
Which is a wisdom we could all employ. I'd like to talk a little bit about milk and brain health. The dairy industry has done a rather spectacular job in convincing us all to drink lots of milk. They've gotten the government to advise us all to drink several glasses a day, even though much of the world's population is unable to produce the enzyme that's needed to break down lactose and to digest milk. Now, when it comes to brain health, what most concerns me about dairy products is that casein, the primary protein in milk, can be an excitotoxin that can lead to brain inflammation and to neurodegenerative diseases. Daniel, what role would you say cow's milk, has in a diet that's designed to reverse memory loss and to support clear thinking throughout the length of a person's lifespan?
Yeah, I think it has no role. I often say that, cow's milk is great for baby cows, and that's where it should stay. I am also a child psychiatrist, and we treat a lot of autistic kids here. When I put them on a dairy-free, wheat-free diet, they often start speaking. I mean, it's just stunning. And people go, but what about calcium? And it's like, no, you don't get that from plants. You don't need to drink milk. Or what about vitamin D? It's like, yeah, go outside or take a vitamin D supplement. I just see it as a troublemaker. And so many kids get addicted to it, adults as well, because when casein is mixed in the stomach with stomach acid, it turns into a morphine-like substance that makes you happy. And I remember before I was informed, I would go over to my mother's house at Christmas. She's a marvelous cook, even at 86 now. And she would make these great pizzas. And I wouldn't have like 2 slices like a normal person. I'd have 10. I was like totally an addict. And then I realized, okay, this is not going to get what you want in life. So you need to eat before you go over there and stay away from the addicted substance. we have to be more thoughtful, more careful. And, parents think if they give a child, chocolate milk, they're doing their duty to be a good parent and giving them something nutritious. And I'm horrified that we're not smarter.
One of the many things I appreciate about your work, Daniel, is that you're continually dispelling the illusion that we're stuck with the brain we have. And you're reminding us that our lifestyle choices, particularly our food choices, can have an enormous impact on how our brains function. But just about everywhere we go today in our society, we're exposed to toxic food that will damage our brains. I want to read a statement that a participant in one of your classes wrote to you. He wrote, "I visited one of the big box stores this weekend. There was death everywhere in the form of toxic food around every corner. I just kept hearing Dr. Amen in the back of my mind, so I walked past it all. I got my organic fruits and veggies, and I left," which is saying a lot because it was nearly lunchtime and it all smelled so good. "Thank you for giving me the tools to make good choices." Daniel, I'm sure it's heartwarming for you to hear things like this from your patients and your students. What I want to ask you is it your experience that when people eat a fast food diet, they'll have a fast food mind that's less capable of clear thinking and reliable decision making?
Yeah, no question. In my mind, that people become dumber, that they increase their risk for multiple illnesses, and they're not going to love their life because they're not fueling their body and their brain that runs it. I think we just have to be so much more thoughtful, even though the brain hates change. So that's been my challenge. In 2011, we created something for Saddleback Church called the Daniel Plan, not named after me, but after the prophet in the Old Testament who wouldn't eat the king's bad food. And 15,000 people signed up the first week. The first year, they lost 250,000 pounds. It was so cool. But there were so many people, even inside the church, that went, "Oh, I'll never do that." And, they'd hold up their bag of potato chips or the candy on their desk. And it's like, "No, have to do this. Even with great education, it's hard to change. And so people change in one of three ways. They have an epiphany, they change the people they hang out with, or they make tiny incremental changes. And when I saw my first scan, that was an epiphany. I needed to do better. When I published the study, as your weight goes up, the size of your brain goes down, I lost 30 pounds. And so, my goal is to become like the person that went to the big box store. I remember getting that testimony. It was so much fun to read in class, that I saw death surrounded by death, covered in death, because they were seeing the truth that we live in a toxic society that does not encourage us to be healthy. And in that way, the medical industry makes a lot of money, the pharmaceutical industry makes a lot of money, and we're becoming dumber as a society. We have to do better.
It's my view that we've normalized toxic food to such an extent that you can eat better, you can eat more healthfully than 75% of the people around you, and still not be eating a diet that would be optimal to avoid Alzheimer's, to preserve your brain function, and your mental health. Right now, Alzheimer's disease is already one of the most feared and devastating illnesses in the world. Experts expect it to triple in the next 30 years. A lot of people are understandably frightened by the prospect that they might someday develop Alzheimer's. It's not an outcome anyone would wish for themselves or their loved ones. Daniel, if you were going to design a diet that was specifically to lessen a person's risk for Alzheimer's, what would it include? What would it look like? What would it exclude?
So when I think of the perfect plate, I think of what I had for lunch today. 80% plants, colorful plants. There were blueberries in there and a little butternut squash and pomegranate seeds and different kinds of lettuces, celery, and high quality fat. So there was some olive oil mixed in with some form of protein, because protein helps fat and protein together help balance blood sugar. So it could be organic tofu, it could be high protein plants like spinach and broccoli, or if you're a meat eater. And the problem with meat is most of it's unclean. So so whether it's red meat or chicken or pork or whatever, most of it's raised with hormones and antibiotics. And so those toxins you have to get rid of. And so people go, oh, I can't afford it, then get rid of it, then don't eat it. But and I would also add chocolate, because I'm a fan. I actually make 2 really great chocolate bars. They are dairy-free and sugar-free, sweetened with erythritol and stevia, and they're amazing. But if you look at the studies on chocolate, how it can increase blood flow, it can be good for your heart, it can help you focus, it has something in it called phenylethylamines that alerts your brainstem that something fun is about to happen. So, I pretty much every day have these things we make called nutty buttercups. It's our chocolate with a little cashew butter, almond butter in the middle of it. Phenomenal.
Most of the chocolate candy that's sold in our supermarkets and grocery stores is it's got dairy in it, it's milk chocolate, and the sugar levels are very high. We often look for the highest level of cocoa and get the darker chocolates, the darkest ones even, because they tend to have the least amount of sweetener, and we don't want to get the dairies. Is that consistent with what you're about?
Well, it is, but I have a sweet tooth because my grandfather was a candy maker. I mean, that was his job. He had his own store on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles. And so my best memories growing up were standing at a stove on a stool making fudge with my grandfather. So it was a way to honor him, because he died of heart disease way too early, which I probably would have if I didn't get serious about my health. And as a way to honor him, it's like, look, you can have sweet things. You just have to know what to sweeten them with. And, do you love it, and does it love you back? So we made something this week with our dark chocolate and quinoa, and so sort of like a Rice Krispie. But you just have to be thoughtful and creative on, are the ingredients in this going to love me back?
When you talked about your early childhood memories of your grandfather's chocolate and candy store, I have very similar early memories from my childhood. My father owned and ran Baskin Robbins, at the time the world's largest ice cream company, and I used to work in the factory. And some of my most happy memories are of gorging on chocolate ice cream when I was a kid. And my uncle, Bert Baskin, died of a heart attack at the age of 54, my dad's partner and brother-in-law. Somewhat like your grandfather, the chickens did, in fact, come home to roost. I'm grateful that I didn't follow the path that was expected of me, to follow in my dad's footsteps and take over the company, because I've lived a life that's healthier and that's hopefully of service to others in living healthier lives and having more optimal brain function, clearer thinking, deeper thinking. I think there's something about having a healthy mind, a balanced mind, the ability to think deeply and clearly, that is profound to our experience of ourselves as human beings. And so I think the work that you and I are doing and others are doing to help people live more brain healthy lives and more physically healthy lives and more lives that are in tune with their deepest purposes for being here in the first place, is a privilege. Do you have that sense?
So we are mavericks together, and that brings me joy. And let me tell you ultimately why. Because, I mean, we're all going to die, right? And people go, well, it's not how long you live, it's the quality of life. And our quality of life is so much better because we're not sick. But when I was in medical school and we learned about genetics, we sort of thought that genes were fixed. You know, you got this or that from your mom, and whatever illnesses you got, you know, it's sort of like roulette. And what we've learned in the last 25 years, that was completely wrong, and that your habits and your exposures turn on or off certain genes that make illness more or less likely in you. So like your uncle who had the heart attack, but also in your babies and your grandbabies. So my daughter, Caitlin, is pregnant with my fifth grandchild. Her name is going to be, or I guess it is, Hayden. And when Hayden is born, she is going to be born with all of the eggs she will ever have. So Caitlin's habits before she got pregnant and during the pregnancy is going to start turning on or off genes in that baby's ovaries that is going to make illness more or less likely in her grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. That's stunning when it comes to my life is not about me. It's about generations of me. And we live in a me society. Don't tell me what to do. And I have no interest in really controlling people. I want to be the voice in their head that tells them to do the right thing. But if you need a reason to do the right thing, it's love. It's because you love your family. Because you're modeling health, or you are modeling today illness. And, you know, I've child psychiatrist, like I said, children don't do what you tell them to do. They do what you do. And so doing the right thing is the ultimate act of service and love for those you care about.
So eating healthfully, if you have little children in your house, modeling healthy eating practices, having healthy food around instead of the junk food that's become so common in our culture, is actually a form of nourishing your children that goes beyond just the obvious, the phytochemicals and the nutrients that you're providing to them, but also you're setting an example that they will listen to.
That's it. And it's the most important thing I think you can do for them. If you give them a healthy body, if you give them a healthy brain, then they can live at their potential. If you never think about that, or you only think about it when they're sick, it is going to leave a legacy of illness.
You know, Daniel, in so many ways I hear you telling us that Alzheimer's and poor brain aging is optional, that it's not an inherent and unavoidable part of growing older. I hear you saying that we can remain clear thinking with good memory as we grow older. And that, in fact, none of us are stuck with the brain we have, but we can make it better. And this is an extraordinary message. It's hopeful. It's important. And I want to thank you in particular for emphasizing the role that a healthful diet plays in mental as well as in physical health. I think that's been a hugely overlooked reality. And I'm very grateful to you for bringing it forward as clearly and as often as you do. It's been a real pleasure talking with you today, as it has been in the past for me. And on behalf of myself and Ocean and everyone involved in the food revolution, I want to thank you, Daniel, for your caring heart, for your deep wisdom, and of course for being with us today.
Well, thank you so much. You and Ocean are doing such a great service. I am grateful to be part of it.
We've been talking with double board certified psychiatrist Dr. Daniel Amen, founder of Amen Clinics, author of 10 New York Times bestselling books, including The Brain Warrior's Way and Magnificent Mind at Any Age. Daniel, in a world in which psychiatrists are so often ignoring the role of food in brain health, your work is so informative and it's so important. And we are grateful that you've stepped forward to make such a difference in so many lives and to help advance the conversation that our society so needs to have. We thank you for your work, for your leadership, and for your partnership in the food revolution.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Dr. Daniel Amen and to my dad and colleague, John Robbins, for that incredibly informative and empowering conversation. To express your opinions on what you've been hearing and to find out what other people are saying, post and engage in the comments section on our broadcast page. Make sure to refresh the comments using the button there so you can see the most recent ones that have been submitted. And I want to share some good news with you. It looks like the technical fix our team implemented an hour ago has worked. We're still monitoring closely, but it appears that the audio quality for our summit from here onwards should be excellent, which is what you deserve and what we want to give you. I want to apologize for the blips that you've heard before, and I want to thank you for hanging in there with us, and I hope we've got this issue resolved once and for all. So now I want to share and respond to some of the questions and comments that folks have been posting. David Turpin said, my wife and I have been on a plant-based diet for the past 15 months and have reaped the benefits. I have lost 65 pounds. My wife has lost weight also. I have also reduced insulin intake. My glucose levels have gotten more stable and within my target level. Wonderful, David. I'm so glad to hear it. Congratulations, and thanks for sharing. We heard from Susan Evans, who said, this is so inspirational. I think this is my epiphany. So many practical ideas from all your speakers. Thank you so much. I've been looking for this for years. Well, welcome, Susan. We're so glad you're here. Clements Hurd asked a question. Healthy fats, including saturated fats, are central to the ketogenic diet. What are your views regarding keto? Well, Clements, this is an important topic and one we actually want to address in real depth because it's on a lot of people's minds right now. The ketogenic diet is one of the most popular search terms on the internet. So in the finale, on the last day of this summit, you're going to hear my dad give a very thoughtful and insightful take on the ketogenic diet. And I want to encourage everyone interested in this topic to be sure to tune in to the finale event next Sunday. Suze D said, I have had such amazing success losing over 80 pounds so far with the information offered by the presenters in this summit, but my weight loss has stalled due to feeling almost normal in this society, though I'm still 40 to 50 pounds overweight. I had been allowing my old addictive food patterns to resume. Now Dr. Amen has given an enormous dinosaur-sized reason to get these last pounds off forever. I know deeply I will be able to get there by continuing to focus on the information I'm assimilating here in this fantastic summit. Thank you so much, John and Ocean Robbins, for selecting these amazing speakers and for making this a summit available to everyone. Well, thank you, Suze. And I want to talk about weight loss for a moment because we're actually getting a lot of comments about it. Suzanne Cheryl Boy said, Daniel, how did you lose 30 pounds? What would you do if you had to lose weight fast? So Suze, Suzanne, everyone else who's asking this question, the number one thing I would do if I wanted to lose weight would be to listen to Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson's presentation on Friday. Food Revolution Network has worked with Susan over the last 3 years to help people to lose more than 400,000 pounds. Susan has developed a program she calls Bright Line Eating, and it works. You can get her best-selling book if you want. It's called Bright Line Eating. And what we've seen in so many people is that making the changes to implement sustained habit change can work for some people easily, and for other people it's hard. Some people are actually addicted to unhealthy foods. And if you're in that situation, you may not actually feel like the author of your food life. What I think is the most important thing that Susan will share is that sugar and flour in particular can be very addictive. And for a lot of people who are prone to the addictive pull of processed and junky foods, it can be helpful and perhaps even necessary to draw some sharp, bright lines and to not eat any sugary foods or even flour-based foods. Remember how it's well known that a recovering alcoholic can't have just one drink. So similarly, if you are prone to food addiction, you may need to draw some sharp lines, and sugar and flour should probably be on the outside of them. Of course, we'll talk about that more with Susan, and you can get her book if you want to jump in faster. We heard from Sarit Messer, who said, I am so grateful for all this information. Eating a plant-based diet not only is better for me and my kids, but it also allows me to find new ways to express creativity in the kitchen. As a single mother, I thought eating an organic plant-based diet was going to be more expensive, but in actuality it isn't. I've saved money from the meat I haven't bought and from the processed food I don't allow in my house. Finding ways to satisfy little ones who have a sweet tooth was my hardest feat, but what I realized is that their brains just had to be retrained. As time went on, they found dates and other fruits and fruit-based desserts satisfying. Now they don't feel a desire to eat junk. They're satisfied with whole foods and nature's bounties. I believe retraining the brain is important. We can exercise control of our brains and gain our lives back. I've seen it in my own life. So true, Sarit. Thank you for sharing this. Kudos to you and to your family for making this shift. You know, some people point out rightly that calories from Doritos and Twinkies and Coca-Cola are cheap, and they say that healthy food is too expensive. But let me add here, the most expensive calories are the ones that give you cancer, dementia, or heart disease, the ones that cripple your life and your vitality. And the next most expensive ones are the ones you don't need. The average American is eating 500 or 1,000 too many calories every day. Those can pile on the pounds, and they also add to the grocery budget. When you cut out junk and processed food, you can make a huge impact on your life, and you also may find that your cells are nourished and satisfied with a little less, which can also ultimately give you more of what you really need, which is health and vitality and energy. Now, Sarit, I also want to say that we want to support you and your family in saving even a bit more money and learning a bit more and applying all of this. So you are this segment's Empowerment Package recipient. We are so glad to share the Empowerment Package with you, so you can have the MP3s and the transcripts of the entire summit for life, plus more than $2,800 worth of bonuses. Congratulations. And congratulations also to all of the other people who are stepping forward and getting the Empowerment Package and owning it for life. And thank you for investing in our mission when you do so. We heard from Michelle Viola, who said, Dr. Daniel mentioned eating only organic blueberries, but organic is not always available. What about cleaning fruits and veggies? I soak them in water and vinegar. Well, Michelle, the truth is, in our modern world, almost no food is 100% free of pesticides. Surprisingly, even organic produce can contain some pesticide residues. So, of course, number one, I want to say that you don't want to make the perfect into the enemy of the good. Do what you can and enjoy your food, and know that tremendous numbers of people have gotten huge benefits from eating blueberries and other berries that were not organic. So do what you can and eat berries and eat greens and eat healthy food, whether or not it's organic. Number two, go organic if you can. Number three, if you want to clean foods, whether organic or not, here's some information that might help. Scientists at the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station found that washing produce with running water reduced the amount of pesticide residue for 9 out of the 12 pesticides they were testing on. So running water can help. So-called produce cleaners have not been found to be effective any more than just water. But there are some liquids that have been shown to be more effective than plain water. And those are salt water, vinegar water, or baking soda water. Salt water can work well, but it's not as effective as the other two. Vinegar water adds an unpleasant taste. Most people don't like their food to taste like vinegar. So I think baking soda water is the winner, and studies have found it was actually the most effective in removing pesticide residues, specifically on the surface and beneath the skin of apples. So the baking soda solution that's been used in many studies was weak. You mix about an ounce of baking soda with 100 ounces of water, so about 1% baking soda. Soak it for about 12 to 15 minutes, and then spin it off in a salad spinner to get it dry. and you'll have removed most of the pesticides. So studies tell us. Hopefully that's going to help you. One of the things that I love is helping people apply all of this that we're learning. And one of the people I love who helps so many people do it because it's her genius is Karen Hartglass. She's the founder of Responsible Eating and Living, or REAL. She's the co-teacher of our wildly popular course, Plant Powered and Thriving. And she's an expert in making healthy eating doable and delicious. On each day of this summit, you're going to get to hear Karen introducing a recipe of the day. So right now, I'm going to hand it to Karen for today's revolutionary recipe of the day.
Hi, everyone. Day 2 of this year's Food Revolution Summit has been so inspiring. And I'm here to tell you about today's recipe, which features blueberries. Dale Bredesen called them brainberries. Ayesha Sherzai calls them saviors and lists them as one of the top brain-nourishing foods. Everyone loves them, and they love us back. 2 more ingredients in today's recipe that are included on the Sherzai's list of great foods for the brain are leafy greens and chocolate. Daniel Amen also told us about the benefits of chocolate, how it can increase blood flow, how it's good for the heart, how it can help us focus. Frozen blueberries, frozen spinach, and cocoa blend up deliciously together with your choice of a plant milk in today's recipe that I call the Blue Steel Smoothie. Using frozen spinach makes this smoothie especially quick and easy to make. I always like to remind people that smoothies should be sipped slowly and not guzzled. And if you are sipping through a straw, have you heard how plastic straws wreak havoc on the environment? From landfills to waterways to the entire food chain, hundreds of millions of plastic straws are used each year. I recommend using stainless steel or glass reusable straws. We recently purchased stainless steel straws that came with a cute little brush that scrubs the insides clean. We take them everywhere, and they go perfectly with this Blue Steel smoothie. Try this smoothie tomorrow to power up your brain for day 3 of the Food Revolution Summit. In the meantime, have a very delicious rest of the day.
Well, thanks so much to Karen for that wonderful recipe. And you will find the recipe of the day posted on the broadcast and replays page each day of the summit. So please enjoy and I hope it helps you to apply what you're learning in a way that helps you love healthy food and love foods that love you back. And I want to share as well that as soon as we wrap up today, all of today's presentations will be on replay for the next 21 hours. You'll find summit replays at foodrevolutionsummit.org/replays, and you'll also find the recipe of the day on there, as well as a link to previous days' recipes of the day. You know, I want to just take a moment to acknowledge something. It can be easy in this society, in a toxic food culture, to feel isolated, to feel even a bit like an alien, because we're surrounded by a society in which normal fast foods and convenience foods are actually junk foods. And so to eat real healthy food can make you feel a little bit like an outsider. But I want to instead invite you to think of yourself as a leader, as somebody who is standing for a new possibility, not just for your life, but for our world. And I want to invite you to recognize that you are not alone. You are part of a global community right now, even in this summit of 300,000 people from 180 countries who are getting informed and participating and supporting each other and speaking out and standing up. And we are going to together change what our stores supply, what our restaurants serve, what our schools serve, what our hospitals serve. We're going to change government policy. We're going to change corporate practice. We're going to change medical schools. We're going to help food become recognized as the foundation of health, and we're going to shift the way that it's processed, the way that it's grown, the way that it's prepared, the way that it's consumed, so that we bring our food choices and our society's food choices into greater integrity with what all of us want. I don't know anybody who wants to suffer and die with cancer, who wants to forget the names of their loved ones with Alzheimer's. I don't know anybody who wants to suffer from obesity or who wants to condemn their kids or the poorest people in our society to nutritional disasters. But this is what we create when we just follow the status quo. So right here and right now, we are standing for something else. We are standing for a vision of possibility, of health and vitality for ourselves, for our loved ones, for our kids, for our families, for our society, for the whole Earth community. And as we take this stand, we help to make powerful changes that send out ripples around the entire globe. So I want to invite you to feel right now that you are part of something big and vast that is shifting the course of history. Just in the last 15 years, sales of organic foods and natural foods and certified non-GMO foods have all exploded. Organic foods are 4 times the sales that they were just at the turn of the century. We are seeing an incredible increase in number of farmers markets, community-supported agriculture programs. Walmart, Safeway, Costco, Kroger's stocking organic foods with pride. The food revolution is growing fast, and it's sending out ripples all over the planet. So I want to thank you for participating, and I hope that through this summit we are able to empower you and support you to take this revolution forward and to live it ever more deeply in your life. Now, as we move towards the completion of this day, I want to say again, you can express your opinions on the summit so far, and you can find out what other people are saying in the comment section on our broadcast page. Do make sure to refresh the comments so you can see the latest ones. You can also join in the conversation on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Food Revolution Network. And I hope you will come on back and join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. GMT for food safety. Protect yourself from hidden dangers in our food supply. We're going to have some very powerful presentations from attorney Andrew Kimbrell, who's going to give us updates from the front lines of food safety. We're going to hear from Carrie Gillum, a profoundly informed journalist who is going to tell us about the great glyphosate cover-up. This is information everyone needs to have. And we're going to hear from Vani Hari on hazardous chemicals no one should eat. So please come on back and join us. And in the meanwhile, you can post your comments and share in the conversation. You can catch and share the replays at foodrevolutionsummit.org/replays. And you can check out the empowerment package. And I also want to invite you to enjoy some delicious, healthy food. We wish you a wonderful, exquisite, thriving day. This is Ocean Robbins, signing off from day 2 in the Food Revolution Summit. No matter where you come from or what you've been through, the simple truth is you are meant to thrive. You deserve boundless energy, a clear mind, and a lean and healthy body. You deserve to feel confident and clear about what you eat and why. The Food Revolution Summit is packed with insights, and trying to catch and absorb all of them can be hard. That's why we created the Empowerment Package. With your Empowerment Package, you can own the entire summit, plus all the transcripts and loads of bonus materials for life. Absorb this life-changing material at a pace that's comfortable and easy for you. Join this movement. Support this mission. Buy your Empowerment Package today.